Okay, good morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 9:01 a.m. Supervisor Gonzalez, if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Can I get a motion to acknowledge the certificate of posting, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Okay, presentations and recognitions. We have a proclamation recognizing March 15th, 2023 as Small Business Development Center Day, presented to Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center. Can I get a motion for that proclamation, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. I believe Cindy is on Zoom joining us.
Yes, ma'am, I am here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Mirzon. I'm the director for the Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center, and we so appreciate your recognition of Small Business Development Center Day. We're one of almost 900 small business development centers across the U.S., and our focus is serving businesses, those that are thinking of starting businesses, and all the way to those that are thinking of retiring and selling their businesses. So every stage, we serve businesses in San Benito and Monterey counties. And so we're very happy to be part of that. And thank you for declaring SBDC Day tomorrow. We appreciate the proclamation.
So this proclamation is recognizing March 15th as National Small Business Development Center Day. This is the official recognition, and that's presented to Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center on National Small Business Development Center Day. As part of the Central California Small Business Development Center Network, Cal Coastal has provided small business assistance to small area businesses to start, grow, and thrive. In 2022, Cal Coastal worked with 667 small businesses supporting 3,665 jobs, provided counseling resulting in 20 new business starts, assisted businesses assessing over $8 million in business loans equity, received a Business Excellence Award from Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and participated in 78 business training events with 1,012 attendees. San Benito County wishes Cal Coastal SBDC on this National Day continued success in the future. Thank you. Okay, do we have any department head announcements?
Yes, we do. Thank you. I'd like to invite up Steve Loop, Public Works Administrator.
All right, good morning, Board, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing Public Works to have our department announcements. And this announcement is a little bit more for the public than perhaps the board. Just want to give folks listening or here at the chambers a little bit of insight regarding road closures and flooded signs. So during the last storm event, I was out on Union Road putting a flooded sign in a lane for the folks that were headed into town, and a large truck, just a privately owned truck, drove by me, and I don't know if he speeded up, but he didn't decrease speeds, and he hit a flooded area and started to fishtail and missed an oncoming truck by about a few inches, and it's kind of a close call. And so I just want to give folks a heads up that when we do flooded signs, beside the fact that we've been fishing a lot of vehicles out of flooded areas recently. Please at least slow down when you see a flooded sign, if not turn around. So then on Union Road again, during the last storm event, we had landslides on one of the lanes on Union Roads and 2 locations in addition to the flooded areas. And so we basically had 1 lane that was usable on Union for the folks that were kind of heading out of town towards 156. So we called, because our road crews are spread all over the county. We called City of Hollister, reached out to them. They fortunately provided a lot of help to close access into Union Road, and that was a big effort. Very appreciative of those folks. They did a great job and closed access into Union Road because there was essentially 1 lane open with folks traveling 50 miles an hour in opposite directions. It wasn't a good thing, and so unfortunately, over the weekend, some person decided to extract all those road closure signs that took 2 hours to set up by the City of Hollister. And so those signs aren't there, and we kind of grabbed them because the city grabbed them because they were thrown all around the road and things. But I'll be going back out to Union after this right now and just kind of seeing if it's flooded or if we need to close it again. But just for the public's information, road closure signs, we thoughtfully consider those. We work with the fire department, we work with the sheriff's department, and then we decide to close the road. And it's a decision-making process. So please take heed to those road closure signs for your own safety and for the safety of others. And in addition, if you see a flooded sign, at least slow down a bit. And those are the department announcements for now. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate that. I'd like to invite up Chris Mangana out of OES. She's going to provide an IA update.
Good morning, Board. We have until 10 o'clock this morning to either accept an appeal, or refuse or deny the appeal to Cal OES and FEMA for the individual assistance we were not awarded for the January storms. We did go out to the public several times through social media and door to door, and through requested emails of any new assessments that needed to be done, and we did not get any responses. So since we have no grounds to really stand on for an appeal, it is the recommendation of OES and Cal OES that we don't, unless there is a direction from the board to do otherwise. Some of the board, 2 members, met with Cal OES and FEMA a week and a half ago, and I believe they felt comfortable with the discussions on what that meant and how the process would work, and kind of used an example of a county affected by fires that had 300 homes damaged or destroyed and did not qualify for IA. So anyway, that's kind of where we stand, but I do need to send a written response to them by 10 a.m. this morning.
And technically, we would have until March 26th to appeal, but they did send a letter asking for yesterday, they sent a letter
sent it
saying,
last night,
that
correct.
they, due to time constraints, they wanted an answer by today about whether the county would appeal. The 30 days actually runs on March 26th.
Correct, but due to new emergencies, they've asked to move that. They're requesting to move that up.
Madam Chair, I was one of the supervisors that was in attendance, and I agree with you. I was disappointed to hear the news that we didn't qualify. There weren't any additional homeowners that sent damage reports that would augment the number that the county already had. But Cal OES filled this room, 2 individuals from FEMA, and though I was saddened by the news, it is a fact that we don't qualify for individual assistance. However, my next question is, since that meeting, we have had subsequent flooding. So is the second event, well, it's actually probably like the 4th event, is this most recent event precluded from applying for individual assistance? And the reason I ask is because we had other areas in District 4, District 2, additional in District 1 that had damages that weren't specifically related or focused on Lover's Lane and San Felipe. And I understand I'm going into a different event, but I just want to make sure that we look at the two separately.
They are two separate incidents.
Good.
The January incident concluded, according to FEMA and Cal OES, that had an end date. This is a new event. We proclaimed a local emergency Friday that you will be ratifying today. So any damages from the storm on Friday going forward will be considered a new event. And we have already submitted our proclamation requesting assistance.
Good.
So,
Steve and I are working today on preliminary numbers that have to be by, in just for record, and they're very adjustable.
Thank you.
So I believe OES has an urgency item that they would like to add today as well, regarding 2 MOUs that they need to have signed by tomorrow. One of them is with the food bank, and which is approximately going to be not to exceed $140,000. One is within Ray's authority. I think it's going to be $30,000 to $40,000 with the city of Hollister.
Correct.
There's going to be a request to add that as an urgency item today, with the need for the MOU coming to the attention of staff after the posting of the agenda, and cannot reasonably wait until the next agenda because it needs to be submitted by Wednesday. And so we'd ask for a motion with those findings by the board to add that as an urgency item. And if the board wanted to, without further direction, I believe staff's not going to submit an appeal for the flood, but if you want to add that as also an urgency item to provide, if you wanted to discuss it further, you could add that as an urgency item as well, as part of all these same agenda item. And then we'll have one more additional urgency item that's going to be closed session personnel, which I will, which you could add at the same time, need for it coming to the attention after the posting of the agenda, specifically this morning, and not being able to wait until the next posted agenda.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to add one item to the regular agenda and then one to the closed session?
So moved as recommended?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Those were the findings. Do you,
That's fine.
Do we need to go to public comment?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any public?
No, I don't think to add it to the board's agenda. They can speak on the agenda,
During
Okay.
on the issue. We just need a vote on that to add it to the
Okay,
agenda.
did you have a question?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So 5-0.
Thank you.
So
So I think we're good.
when
Thank-
not appealing.
I mean, we have until 10 a.m., so,
Yeah, the question is the board just adding the 2 MOUs to the agenda, or do you want to add the issue of the appeal to the agenda as well?
Supervisor Zanger?
Yeah, I was also at the meeting with Supervisor Gonzalez. She basically summed it up. She said it. I mean, we're not kind of in the ballpark, so we should just use resources to do what we can rather than waste time. So I don't think it's a good idea.
Supervisor Curl?
I just want to make sure that if we need to do a vote so that she has direction to not appeal, that we add it so that we agree that we're not going to appeal if we need a vote on it. Otherwise, just clarifying, I have had lots of calls of damage, and thank you, Supervisor Gonzalez, for acknowledging that. And I've been forwarding all this news storm so that oes@cosb.us with your address in the subject line and the date of the storm. Thank you for that. And people are really appreciating knowing that there is a possibility we may qualify in this next round. That was the only comment I wanted to make.
If your board does want to move forward with a vote, then I think we need to have it as an item, so add it to as an emergency item, and then vote on it, and then we have to do that the very first thing. 'Cause
Right,
she's
so
got-
it seems like it's pretty clear to me right now, listening to kind of both Supervisor Gonzalez and Supervisor Zanger, that there's really not a whole lot we
Okay.
can do, and so we need to accept the, unfortunately not receiving the IA. But the 2 MOUs will be added to the regular
Perfect.
session, and then the
Perfect.
personnel will be added to closed. Is that,
That's
we can
perfect.
clarify
That's
that?
great.
Okay.
We got clear enough direction.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Awesome.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Madison, appreciate it. And then, let's see, you had the other one, right? close that. Okay, so that's all the announcements we have. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so board announcements. Who would like to go first? Supervisor Kozmicki?
Sure, I'll get mine done. Really brief. So yesterday I sat in the San Juan Batista. There's an effort to start a senior center in San Juan, so I took part in a listening session over in San Juan, and there's a lot of progress being made on that, and I really want to thank Mary Edge and all the folks that are involved with that, and so there's more to come on that. And then just future agenda items. One, I would like to request at least a brief presentation on the library expansion project and just where things are at going forward, and just at least so we can have an understanding on that.
I'll be his second on that.
Thank you. And then I'm hoping, I don't want to violate Brown Act rules with, I'm sure others have talked about this, but the committees, in particular, we had the discussion on the committees at the retreat, and I'm hoping to have that conversation again at some point relatively soon, just with the goal of at least exploring whether there are certain committees that we might want to, refine or disband from the list of committees due to staff resources.
Committees or ad hocs?
Committees in particular. We can throw ad hocs in as well, and I'm sure the chair might want to, the board might want to discuss, whether there are any ad hocs that we don't really have a lot of ad hocs right now. So I'd be fine with having a dual conversation on those two.
I'll be a second on that also.
Great, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes, last night we had our first meeting for the Pacheco Storm Water District, and I was happy to see the 3 new trustees that were present. It looks like it might be the first step in many to start addressing the levee issues. Today, I believe they'll be applying for $2.5 million in FEMA funds to help start that process, and so I'm excited. And then I also wanted to mention that the Poppy Jasper International Film Festival is coming to San Benito County, Gilroy, Morgan Hill, San Juan, Hollister, and so they are looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in contributing to that, go online, and they're looking for volunteers. And then I don't know if I have asked officially for this item, but I know Barbara, you and I have talked about that. But I was wondering if the county would be interested in adopting a gray water ordinance. I know that when the Land of Lee project came up, that was one item that he had mentioned was in his plan. And this is not specific to his project, but it's a way for the county, even though we're getting so much rain right now, to kind of function and operate with water resources and so forth. So we don't currently have one on the books, so I was wondering if we'd be looking at that. The city of Huron and the city of San Francisco have some ordinances that we can follow, and so I was just wondering if that'd be something that we can look at moving forward.
Yeah, I'll second that. I don't really understand. I've seconded just to hear more information about it because I don't really understand it. So.
Thank you.
Supervisor Zanger, do you have any announcements?
Nope. No.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Curl?
I have nothing to report on committees. I did attend the Girls Inc. Board retreat with Assembly Member Gail Pellerin. I was really honored to hear that one of our local Hollister High School students had received a $25,000 scholarship. It is one of, I believe, 2 scholarships in the nation that's issued by Girls Inc. It's called the Susan Patmore Gibbs Courage Scholarship, and the recipient is Kayla Salazar, and she is a very just incredible young lady. She's going to have a wonderful time at college, and I hope she has a lot of fun. She's going to Paris to celebrate with her parents over the summer. I'm totally jealous. It's on my bucket list. Also, I'm going to say this wrong, but I was informed that there's 55 days after a storm that you can clear items out of the flood area. You can remove debris without permits. Is that correct? I just want to kind of do a public service announcement on that. Is that, I don't want to misspoke on what the rules are. Is that something that we could,
We can invite Steve to answer that.
okay, I just
My
want to,
understanding is during a storm or right after the storm, you have the ability to.
the ability to get in there
There and
without a
remove some.
permit.
Yeah, but I'll invite Steve.
Sorry, Steve. While Steve's coming up, also attended the At Home from CSAC session that they had, and I'm sure Supervisor Gonzalez can talk a lot more about this program. I'm looking forward to learning more through CSAC about how we can help our homeless situation and how CSAC is working with the League of Cities in the state, and that is really going to be hopefully a way of moving forward with some true rolled guidance and funding for homelessness. And that's all I have. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Supervisor, so a couple things. One thing that for folks to keep in mind is whether it's a previous storm event or a current storm event, when a storm event's occurring, Fish and Wildlife, which I think you're referring to, will allow a property owner or any entity that has jurisdiction over a creek or waterway to remove debris, materials, etc., that pose a risk to life safety, whether that's life safety for human or animals. They're allowed to do that, even today as we sit here. So just kind of FYI. As far as the time limit, I've heard a couple different times. I did hear the 55 days, but I'm still trying to clarify that. Some folks, but I'm assuming you're referring to Fish and Wildlife. Is that correct? So I will clarify that with them. That is roughly the time frame, I'll say, that I've heard is 2 months after an event, but I have not received an official number, so, but that's about the time frame.
Thank you, Steve. And just reminding everyone, don't do it when you're at risk.
Don't go too far.
And then I have one last item. When we had our board retreat, we did not get to actually do a complete presentation, and I'm going to say the name of this program. Acela? Okay, Acela. I would really like to have that for the public and for the board members. If we could do that during a regular meeting so that the public can understand how that program works and we can get information to you.
If I may add
Jay.
to Madam Chair, I know there was a few other technical programs that we had as well that I think we'll bring that back to the board as well, because there's some really great tools that we have even outside of our CELA that I think will benefit you and as well as the public. So
I can second that.
Thank you. Steve, somebody mentioned to me that if we did a resolution or a proclamation or something of that sort with the Department of Water Resources, with DWR, that we could get in and clean out some of these culverts or something of that sort. And they said that they're doing it down in like the Santa Maria area. Do you know if there's, do you know anything about that? Or,
For DWR, it's possible, and I'll look into it. So yeah, please forward the information. And
that's all the information I have.
okay, well,
Sorry.
I'll look into
But
it.
I can tell you who the information I got it from, and maybe we can do a little bit of research.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
great. And most of the permitting agencies, especially right now, will be amenable to those type of activities. I'll tell you that much from what I've been researching. So that sounds like we're on the same page. But yeah,
Thank
please
you.
forward me the contact.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just have a future agenda item that I would like to add. Last board meeting, I believe it was, Mr. Ivankovich came and spoke about some issues on Buena Vista Road, and so I was just hoping that maybe we can get a presentation on what is happening on Buena Vista Road, kind of what the solutions are.
I would second that.
specifically to our property or what
Not our
specifically?
property,
Just the
specifically to
traveling,
kind of
the
yes.
speeding and all of that? Okay.
Yeah. And that's all that I have. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to public comment.
Madam Chair, just to address Supervisor Colonel's comment about the at-home, We did receive a document, and I did send it to Barbara Thompson, so you have it in your email. I sent it on Friday, so if you can disseminate that to all of the supervisors, that would be great. The at-home project, okay, thank you, okay.
And I believe the at-home is really dealing with kind of homelessness, right? And kind of bringing cities and counties together.
It's actually legislation that they're pushing there at Sacramento and forcing cities and counties to accept responsibility and then delegated tasks specifically, and then the state to allocate funding. So it's moving into legislation. It's not there yet. It was very secretive when we approached it. It had confidential written all over it, but once they shared it there at CSAC, it became public knowledge, and so I immediately sent it to Barbara on Friday when I received it.
Thank you. Okay, so public comment?
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press *9 or the raise your hand icon. In chambers, we have Roxy Montana.
Good morning, supervisors and staff. Thank you. My name is Roxy Montana, and I am San Benito County District 1. And I would like to address the crucial issue of trust that with Hazel Hawkins Hospital earning a noteworthy no confidence vote from a public, non-political, grassroots focus committee that gathers round the round table once a week, and we have been doing so for the past month. We are relatable as the Citizens Integrity in Action, and that's like CIA, IIA. This is nothing new because the hospital has been the subject of previous grand jury reports, and we know that our county has been approached by Triple H for a loan or a quick fix to tie them over until the next source is secured through a strategic partner, none currently identified. The hospital administration has appeared to desperately need to continue their unfledged management style, and their request for $10 million out of the People's Rainy Day funds has been valiantly protected by the responsible county supervisors, ironically during the rainy day flooding season recently fraught with emergencies. What have the taxpayers in the community received for their funding? With expensive employee contracts, they are now faced with a crisis to bankruptcy, and our community's needs for health care are now held hostage by a weak system that continues to hemorrhage money at an exorbitant number each day. Closure should not be an option. We are concerned the current Triple H administration has not changed their message while extending the runway. It's like flying the airplane while building it. They do not appear to possess the necessary experience in crisis management of a failing system, and not being able to identify failure in early stages, but waiting until code blue to sound the signal is not an acceptable sign for a successful future. Thank God for the accountable stewardship of the people's money, to act with fiscal responsibility as any realistic lender would be. Please continue to hold Triple H accountable. Thank you very much.
We have Peter Hernandez.
Hello, fellow board. I can't say I don't miss these chambers. On this rainy day, it's funny how we're dealing with the issues of a fiscal crisis across the country, and ultimately our own flooding and the implications of that, right? A lot of people suffering. And I know that our hospital has been consistently a big part of our community and the need, right? We're 14 miles in off the beaten path, right? So there's a definitely an emergency element when it comes to people's health care if they don't have access, and especially in short periods of times when there could be a heart attack or a situation where minutes are basically life-sparing. So I just want to really emphasize something, and it's not under the guise of trying to create a sentiment of distrust. It's actually trying to encourage trust, right? The public being the biggest forefront of what's necessary. There's a statement that Winston Churchill said, "In time of war, truth is so powerful, it's being attended to by a bodyguard of lies." The reason why I say that is not because there's anything that I could assume that there's lies happening, but to a certain extent, that's the sentiment that's being created, because if you think about everything that's been pretty consistent with the negotiations of the hospital, they're basically always under the guise of a non-disclosure agreement, or trying to create some relationship with someone that would buy them out. That by default creates an intentional attitude to basically keep everything under wraps. So if you think about that, by default, all that does is create more questions and distrust, which I really believe the day will come when the public will be needed to basically bail them out. And I just think in these tough times, these issues are happening with hospitals across the state, obviously, right? So there is elements, that are happening because of regulatory burdens and the cost of living in California. But outside of that reality, all we're doing is basically delaying the inevitable. I really believe we have to get a place of transparency. So I know that the board has certain powers. My encouragement to you is because I think, especially if, God forbid, the hospital closes, you'll eventually deal with the inevitable of the repercussions, basically, to address the resource management of the hospital would basically demand, and you guys would have to fill in. So to my point is, my recommendation is to try to create public trust. I really do believe there should be a resolution by our board, respectfully, to recommend to the grand jury to use their subpoena powers to basically pull the budget and get into light item discussions about what is going on with the hospital. So, and then the last thing I just wanted to really mention is that we really don't have time to waste, and I think if you really want to understand what are the priorities of a leadership, you look at their budget and you'll understand a lot. So thank you for your time, Board. God bless you guys.
Elia Salinas.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors, and thank you to Ms. Montana and Mr. Hernandez. To the point, specifically what Peter Hernandez had to say about you have the authority to use the grand jury's position to subpoena those records. I'd mentioned to Supervisor Kosmicki with regards to there has to be a way for the county to be able to request a fiscal audit of Hazel Hawkins Hospital, whether it is through this grand jury that has now that's new to me, but how long will that take? Is there an authority, and I'm thinking it's the department that licenses the hospitals and supervises the hospitals, and that can come in on an emergency basis and audit the hospital, do a fiscal analysis. What is going on? Why are they not being so transparent? And it's interesting in the play of words. To a layperson, they don't understand. What is the difference between a letter of interest and a letter of intent? Okay. They specifically said that there's a letter of interest that's been signed. As a person in the legal field, that doesn't mean anything. That's just like an NDA. A letter of interest is actually getting into the meat and potatoes of negotiating to a contract. So I would like that to be taken into consideration by you when you read what's going on, because they're not coming for you, to you, I'm sorry. And it was very interesting that they were able to put it out there in public, not coming to the board, not coming to the, I can't think of it, the government. Yeah, governmental. Anyway, they didn't come to them and they stopped coming to the meetings, but they put it out in public. Hey, we have a letter of interest. Okay, so don't we cannot afford to let this hospital close. Going on to the emergency with what's going on, do not stop at no. There's money out there. If we look for it, there's plenty of money out there. So just because they say no, find some other way to get resources here. And why has not behavioral health come out and help these individuals that have lost every single thing, especially the children? They need some kind of counseling. Lastly, I'm running out of time. I found a location for storage for people who want to donate clothing, furniture, anything like that. If they get a hold of me, I'm going to try to maybe start collecting the items tomorrow, and they can come and we can use this as storage for when they're able to move, that they'll have something to go to.
Elliot, how do they get a hold of you?
My phone number, I'll give you my phone number is 831-537-7312, or they can email me at eliasalinas@icloud.com. We won't take no for any. We'll take money. Money goes to the community foundation. Food donations go to the community food bank. But the storage, I'm not associated with anybody. But they're going to. I'm going to be using the foundation and the community bank as resources to be able to help me, and I can help them. But bring whatever you have. We'll take furniture. We'll take whatever because they're going to have to start somewhere. But it's not a place to get rid of something you don't want, because it actually should go to the landfill. So we're going to be semi-selective on the donations. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
On Zoom, you've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Sarah Spalding. I'm here today to talk about your IHSS home care providers in San Benito County. I myself am a home care provider. I take care of my sister-in-law that lives with me for the past 10 years in Santa Cruz County. And I'm here to talk about, to support my friends, my caregivers, home caregivers that are in San Benito County that desperately need health care. You have a small percentage of home care providers in San Benito County that take care of your sick and disabled community in San Benito. President Biden deemed home care workers essential, and healthcare is essential. So please consider the healthcare trust for these workers. We have the healthcare trust in Santa Cruz County, and it has made a world of difference to home care providers that cannot afford the Affordable Care Act. So many of us have had to pay the penalties at the end of the year for not having healthcare, and just hope that there is no huge medical issue that arises with home care workers. And these are workers that care for others, that have health care. So it's just not right to have these people in your community that are not being taken care of where they're taking care of your community. So thank you for that consideration, and good day.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes. Valerie, you've been unmuted. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, first I want to say thank you very much to all the first responders out there in the cold and rain It's been a brutal situation, and I'm so grateful for all that they do. Um, Reach has posted on our Facebook and group sites about the closures of parks and the advisories on any trail. Yesterday, we advised that the Anza Trail would be closed because Kim Johnson, our committee person for the trail, advised me that walking up there, they have identified cave-ins on the sides of the trail off to the edge where the canyon is steep. And so we decided to really broadcast that as much as possible. We've also advised any other situation that seemed like it needed to be pushed out there, like the closure of the Ag Day, the Farm Day tomorrow. And so I just wanted to let you know that we've tried to do our part in helping out with the situation rather than being sitting back and waiting to be told anything. It's pretty exciting to see how many people respond to our outreach and do add to information. And that's kind of where the parks are right now. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Vicente. I'm with SEIU Local 2015. I actually have two IHSS workers on the line with me, and I'll be interpreting for them right now. Okay. Bueno, Maribel, digo María, cuando usted está lista, ya me puede empezar a decir lo que quiere decir, ¿ok? Ok, cuando ya puede empezar. Supervisors, and Bea Gonzalez. My name is Maria Perez Gallegos. The reason I'm here is because I'm asking that you do something for us, for providers who are, it's very just that we get healthcare, because we are always doing work that is very heavy and risking COVID. I have been working with someone and they all got sick from COVID, and I don't have health insurance. So thankfully I wasn't affected. I didn't get sick, but that's why please that you take into consideration what I'm asking and that you do something for us, because I think it is very just and that we deserve it. Thank you so much. Gracias, Maribel. Digo, María. Ahora Maribel, ¿quiere compartir? Hello, good morning, supervisors. My name is Maribel Jaime. I'm a provider with IHSS. For me, health insurance is important. In these moments, we are seeing closed roads and flooded roads. But us as home care providers, we do not have the option of just staying at home. We are responsible, and we need to continue with our clients that we take care of and to take them to the doctor. It is important for us that you think it is important for us that you think about us and you think about the resources that are necessary for residents of the county of San Benito. And one part of these conversations has to be about what we are doing in the county to create access to healthcare for those who need it. The providers of IHSS take care of some of the most vulnerable in our community. But in order to continue to provide the home care, we need to be able to take care of ourselves. I'll say again that it is time to prioritize IHSS workers and to figure out how to create a pathway to healthcare for workers. Thank you so much, supervisors.
No further comments.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to consent agenda. Supervisor Gonzalez, do you have any consent agenda items you'd like to pull?
No, I do not.
Supervisor Kozmicki?
1.12, please.
Any others? Got it?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Kuro?
No, I don't.
Supervisor Zanger?
Yeah, 1.1, please.
1.1, just 1.1?
Yeah, 1.1.
Okay. Okay.
That's it.
All right, and I don't have any to pull. So we will hear those after closed session. Thank you. So moving on now to
Hold on. I'll make a motion to
Oh,
approve.
sorry.
Item 1.3.
Public comment, ma'am?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Public comment, please.
And in chambers, we have Elia Salinas.
I have several just questions. 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. It's under as COA Espinoza, but the county just hired a department head. Why is that department head's not named behind this? It's usually the department head, and I'm questioning why is it the CAO and not the department head? 1.10, just so that the public is aware that we do have foster care in San Benito County. It's going under consent, but I think it should be brought to the public's attention that we do have a program here in San Benito County. 1.18, what's my question? What is the difference between, I know that you're trying to get a planning grant, but under the general plan that you want to try to amend, how is the San Benito County Land Trust associated? Or how do you view the association with the San Benito Land Grant? Because that's their focus, is to preserve open space and ag land. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
On Zoom, please press *9 or the raise your hand icon. No comments.
Thank you.
I wish we would have went to public comment first, since I already said I had nothing to pull. So I will go ahead and continue on with my motion. Items number 1.3 through 1.19 approved for consent.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
No, 1.1 and 1.2 were pulled, all others were not.
Oh, 1.12.
It's 1.12, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Sorry,
apologies,
12.
I put 1. So yours was Office of Emergency Services?
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies, I marked it wrong.
I didn't catch that, sorry.
I did as well. Sorry.
I should speak like a normal person.
Thank you,
We all
Barbara.
made the same mistake.
I
I'm
got
glad. Okay, then again, renewing my motions, approve the consent items with the exception of item 1.1 and 1.12.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. Okay, now moving on to regular agenda. Item 2.1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and get started. So as mentioned during the board retreat, the floods have impacted and displaced many residents during our retreat. We came before you to purchase 11 RV trailers using emergency funds. During that time, we did discuss the potential of addressing or waiving permit fees for those property owners that were directly impacted. So this particular item is to actually formalize that if your board so chooses to move in that direction. So I'm going to go ahead and invite up Abraham Prado, and he'll go ahead and take this item.
Thank you, CAO Espinosa. Madam Chair, members of the board, good morning. Thank you for entertaining this item, very important. We had discussed this previously at I think it was at department head announcements. As CAO Espinosa mentioned, this is something that because of Cal OES, FEMA not being able to assist with individual assistance to the families, and staff being out there looking at the various homes that were affected by the storms earlier this year in January and late December as well. It is something that we would like to bring before you, and you have also mentioned that it would be important to see if we can assist the families, at least to waive these building permit fees and help the families. Staff has been out there and has seen various properties that have been affected. We've been out there and talked to various families about the needs, not only just the building permit needs, but just in general. But for example, one Saturday we were out there, we spoke to at least 20 heads of household, over 80 family members, and they've indicated and expressed the need to receive that assistance, and so therefore staff is hoping that we can have that approval from the board, and the request is to approve the budget adjustment transfer in the amount of $75,000, and if it is the will of the board, and if there is some additional needs at a later time, we can come before you and indicate that as well.
There might be additional needs after this next set of storms that just happened, so, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Mike, did you want to go to public first?
If we can go to public comment, please.
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press *9 or the raise your hand icon. No comments.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that 75,000 was going to be enough. And as as you said, we may have to go back and look at that. So thank you for that contribution. This is going to individuals who have lost everything, and so it's desperately needed. And so I thank the county for making this gesture. When the OES had their site open for the 3 days at the Strata Verde building, there were many people there that were concerned about how they were going to rebuild. So I commend the county to waive these fees, but as long as we're keeping that, it's not a closed window, and it's open up to future flood victims, because as we know, just last weekend, we have significantly others. But if we vote on this item for the 75,000, is that just for the existing flood victims and their damage? And then any subsequent is going to require another vote?
So this item does specifically indicate for the December and January. As you well know, we prepare these items prior to at least a week, even 2 or 3 weeks.
So more beyond 2 weeks.
Yeah, beyond 2
Come
weeks.
on, Abraham,
Yes. We need to. So all of a sudden we prepare this. We have and then we hear about this storm overnight today, and so therefore just to play it safe, if you would like to include for March those that were families that were affected for the March storms, that would be fine. And again, we can come back if we do need additional funds. That is the will of the board.
What's the will of the board?
Oh, Madam Chair, I would agree with including the current storm as well, if possible.
Any other? No? Okay, so what is the will of the board?
I'm going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'm going to move to approve the 75,000 and amend it, so authorize and delegate the department heads to allow the county to waive these fees for those residents affected by the December 22 January 23 and current March storms, and flooding including limited to buildings permits as noted by staff in an amount of $75,000.
I'll second and approve the budget adjustment transfer.
And approve the budget adjustment transfer. Thank you, Barbara.
I'll second that. So all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Thanks, Abraham.
Okay, item 2.2.
I'd like to invite up Gracie. There she is. She's double duty today. Thank you. Gracie will go ahead and open this item. Gracie Rodriguez, our management analyst.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board Supervisors, and members of the public. Just a brief introduction to this item. This is for our California consultant. We had discussed contracting a grant writer in our Economic Development Advisory Committee back in 2021. And from that, we were able to seek out grant proposals or proposals from grant agencies to seek out what agency would better fit our needs, and we came across California Consulting. We've been in contract with them for about 10 months. Now we are coming back to your board to provide a presentation and discuss whether we want to move forward with them for another 10 months. That would be under the 50K and our CAO can get into contract with. I do want to just make a small correction on the staff report. There was some reference to a Julie High. I just want to notify the board and the members of the public that was a mistake. From another county, they accidentally placed it on our staff report. So
What was it?
no reference to Julie High.
The school.
The school.
The schools.
part, yep.
School part.
Thank you.
The very bottom of the agenda.
And I believe it was under the section D, the last one. With that, I would like to introduce David Marquez. He is our project manager and grant writing consultant. And I believe he's on Zoom.
Good morning, Gracie. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for allowing me to discuss this item. And I'll be happy to answer any questions as we go through the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so am I able to be heard?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you, Gracie. Yeah, so these are what we generally put out kind of by the numbers, and what when we started off meeting with staff, we had with the county, we performed an assessment. What are the needs, what are the priorities, and discussed what grants are available. Immediately, broadband connection was identified. Working with the RRC, we identified the local CPUC, local agency technology assistance grant, and we got that one awarded. We put together a list of grants that would fit the needs. Most of these grants are now upcoming in this spring, summer cycle. We anticipated there would be arriving, and part of it is kind of the latent effect of COVID, where the grant cycles were highly affected. So grants that we expected maybe in the fall and winter were kind of pushed back a little bit. So we're anticipating in a very heavy spring, summer application season. So we did get a grant awarded for $500,000, but we have a number in consideration and several in the pipeline. Okay, we can move on. So as I mentioned, the local technical assistance grant for $500,000, and we have the highway safety improvement program for cycle 11 for these are pending, though we did get unfortunately we did get information. I did get information last night that our HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program, will probably not be funded, is not on the funded list. And I want to make clear this grant, which is, we worked with Kimley Horn, and this grant is largely based on information that we've taken from the local road safety plan for San Benito County. And it requires, though our benefit cost ratio, which takes into consideration the number of injuries, fatalities, and collisions, was high, it was not significantly higher than a lot of other applicants. It's a double-edged sword. So, but we'll definitely look at other opportunities to fund this project. And then we're still waiting to hear on the Board of State and Community Corrections Prop 64 Public Health and Safety Program for $2.9 million, and that I work directly with the Sheriff's Department. Okay. So these grants here that well, let me jump to number 2. It says due March 9th. So we submitted the Safe Routes to School plan last Thursday. So that's been submitted. I anticipate probably hearing maybe 4 or 5 months from Caltrans on the results from this application. The other grants, like I said, we have quite a few that we are working on, and that will be due in spring and summer. There'll be more to come. High priority was the quagga and the zebra mussel infestation prevention program. So we have a period from April 10th to May 19th to put this together, and I'll work with Steve and his team on this. And number 3, the Land Water Conservation Fund for park development improvements, and Clean California, and the Recreational Trails program. So I'll be working with staff, and I'll bring in other writers as needed to develop these applications. Okay. And what I put together, these are future grant opportunities where we don't have a specific date, but we're keeping a strong eye on them. In America the Beautiful grant, that will be tied to the quagga mussel application from state parks. It's not going, the money is not going to be in the millions like the state parks grant, but this will maybe supplement or help us address some components of the quagga mussel issue. This is a high priority, is the cybersecurity. The Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, released money to the states, and it's released to the states. So this would be a pass-through through FEMA. We are watching this very carefully. We know this is a high priority. So when this is released, we'll definitely jump on it and work with Brian and his team over at with IT. We'll do this, and the AMBAG allocation for REAP 2.0. That's probably spring, summer. This is also a pass-through through the state, and from the state through AMBAG, and this will probably be released in summer, though we have a good idea what we want to do with this. Future opportunities, or find opportunities for funding, looking at King City Road. This we do is we have a monthly staff meeting, and we go over our agenda, and we go over what we have applied for, what's pending, what is on the horizon, if there's any emerging priorities, and what are the funding opportunities to address these funding, to respond to these funding priorities. And the King City Road and housing financing have come up with school facilities. I believe it's libraries and such. So we have a large list of grants. So we basically look at the needs and we match the opportunities to the needs. Okay, we could move on. And I think that's it. Is it?
I will pass it back to the board for discussion and any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press the raise your hand icon on your screen. In chambers, we have Elia Salinas.
Lindy. Lindy, the sheriff, raised his hand for public comment.
I'll be within my time, unlike Miss Salinas. Just kidding. I had the pleasure of working with David on that Prop 64 grant that we're trying to get the $3 million of funding for staff for a met need that we have. Since I got to this county, I've advocated for us to try to bring on a full-time grant writer. I urge the board to continue this contract with California Consulting. If you have not been involved in the grant writing process, it's now every grant, just about every grant that's out there is competitive in the state of California. Federal dollars that funnel through the state. And I wrote one as a captain. Sergeant Aribe in our office wrote one. Under Sheriff Keelan wrote one. We're trying to write these things without experience. And we're going to these conferences with teams from other counties that they have doctors and experts, and we're competing against these other counties for this money. And it's we've been successful in some and not successful in others, but it's not for lack of effort. But I can tell you, just trying to get these applications in the competitive nature of these grants, you need an expert to do that. And then on the back end, the reason why I'll still advocate for a grant writer, grant administrator to be brought on full-time to the county is because the administrative tasks to keep up with the grant reporting throughout the life of the grant, maybe that's something that David and his team do. I'm not sure because we haven't crossed that bridge yet. But I know that Kelly Kennedy in our office is burdened with extensive reporting back to the state of California for all these grants that have to have evidence-based practices, promising practices. You have to bring in community partners. You have to funnel money to them. It's a full-time job. So for a county like ours that really needs to chase this grant money, again, thankful for Supervisor Zanger, and I know Supervisor Curo has been looking at some stuff for us too. We really want to apply for these grants, but we really need the professional support to do that. And as you can already see, what is it, 1,000% return just on the investment we've done so far. So for our office, you'll have a huge advocate to continue that. And then as we move into the budget process, to really think about bringing somebody on full time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bring it back to the board. Anybody have any?
There's one public comment.
Oh, there is one. Okay, sorry.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Last time anyway, procedures. Yes, Sheriff Taylor, that you're spot on with your recommendation to continue the grant writing program and to have California Consulting continue with San Benito County. I have taken grant writing classes and grant writing administration classes. We have gone through grant projects with Reach San Benito Parks Foundation. We have assisted RMA with grant writing that they've done and getting public support. It is huge, just to look at the reporting you need to do, the qualifications, the statistics, the data. It really requires a professional and a good staff. So I congratulate on the Safe Ways to Schools, Parks and Trail grants, and the quagga mussel issues. Very, very important for San Benito County, and we really need to invest in a department, a grant writing department, to move us forward. Otherwise, we are left behind. Thank you so much.
Okay, bring it back to the board. Any comments?
Sorry. I just want to say that this is a great opportunity, and as the sheriff had mentioned, 1,000% return on it. When the previous board was looking at, bringing on a grant writer, the board before Supervisor Kazumiki and I came on, I know they balked at the discussion of bringing a grant writer. And the last time we brought someone on, the individual paid for themselves, And here we have 1,000% return, so it's a no-brainer. We have to go for it. And just the item that's already been approved, the 500,000, that's awesome. And the future possibility, I love the item number 1, finally addressing the zebra mussel infestation. That's been a bane of my existence my entire life, born and raised here, and not being able to go out there and enjoy that. So I know people really are advocating for that. So I wholeheartedly support this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I feel really good about where this has gone since we started this process with the grant writer, and it's obviously paid its dividends, and I'm very confident it will continue to pay for itself plus a lot more. Just wondering, I mentioned out of facilities that we're potentially having another opportunity for another library grant, so I'm wondering if, and I should have maybe included this earlier in announcements, but I'm wondering if maybe it makes sense to include that as part of the discussion on the library expansion, just because it would be part of the expansion. So I would like to maybe get some clarity on timing with that grant in particular, and that might be appropriate either now or when we have that discussion. But if you have more information now.
We had, if I may.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, we're working with Nora and our team on potentially an expanded, adding more money to the pot, so to speak, for our project. So, Nora's on the phone. She's going to be discussing her item at the end of the day here, but we can bring that back as a discussion item, as well as additional grant funding for the library.
I think that would be great, and the intergovernmental is looking at taking up the library issue as well, so there's a lot of conversation going on with that. And the other part of that is I would be hopeful, and we can have this discussion when we have the expansion conversation at a later date here, but I'm really hopeful that we can engage with the city of Hollister. I think this is one of those areas where it's a natural area where we should have a partnership with the city of Hollister, and that the library largely serves city of Hollister residents. So just want to put that out there in the public. Let's have open arms bringing the city into this conversation so that they can hopefully step up to the plate, and perhaps down the line, what I kind of envision is a city-county library. I don't think county, city, I don't think the title should matter. We're all serving largely the same residents, and we should start partnering on that. So that's all. Thank you.
Supervisor Curl? I will second that future agenda item, and I want to piggyback on the library part of looking at the library as being a first phase of what could happen for this block, so that we aren't continually doing Band-Aid repairs on facilities, but we're looking at the future of facilities long-term and really use this potential 20 million plus our 7.5 matching to start to address some of our future needs. I know this money can't go towards future needs, but making this the first steps of the vision that we may have. Additionally, when it comes to, I totally am in support of extending this contract. When it comes to what the sheriff said, I have mentioned and have had conversations with the chair and with the CAO about a procurement officer. I know we can't immediately go to a full department on grant writing, but if we start with a procurement officer that could coordinate contract management and contract administration, which is what a grant is, because I see a freight train coming towards us. Being someone that's worked in the county, when you have that much money coming in, the administration of those grants are extensive. And so I would recommend for future budget discussion, a procurement officer that would also be a grant administrator.
Do we need a second on that item?
Sure, if I may.
That's going to be during the budget process.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Supervisor Zanger?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Supervisor Gonzalez, I think, said it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just a simple math question at this point. It just pays for itself. It makes sense. So I like it. Just want to mention again, I'd love to see the sheriff equipment grant on the future grant opportunities list. So I just want to make sure that that's not ever forgotten about. That's it.
Thank you. I actually have worked a little bit with Dave in my short time here. I immediately kind of got to work on working with Dave and staff on some grant opportunities. And even with really short notice, he was incredible to work with, and the firm was willing to do whatever. And so I really appreciate that. So I agree. I support this as well. So do we, somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve as recommended.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Looking at the time, do we need to take a 5-10 minute recess?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll take a 5-10 minute recess. and program allocations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and start this. So as stated earlier on item 2.1, we received approval to move forward with purchasing 11 RVs using emergency funds. However, during the presentation at the retreat, your board requested us to look at other funding options for the RVs, as well as bringing back the ARPA budget that was approved, so that there can be some discussion with your board with regards to the ARPA. So today we have both of these items, along with the request from your board to give us some direction on the LATCF, which is something new, which Gracie will be discussing. So we have Ramon, our budget officer, online. He'll be presenting remotely, as well as Gracie to discuss the LATCF. So Ramon.
Good morning, everyone. Members of the board and members of the public. Before I get into the ARPA update, I want to briefly discuss the budget adjustment transfer that Ray mentioned. So we are requesting that the budget adjustment transfer is approved. And what we're doing is we're moving the affordable housing fees. We're using the affordable housing fees from the Inclusionary Housing Impact Fund to purchase the trailers and to fund the tiny homes project instead of using the emergency reserves, which is something that was approved February 21st during the board retreat. And let's see, part of that budget adjustment transfer also includes using $157,000 to fund the tiny home projects, and for the trailers, the amount is $421,000. And if you have, I don't know if you want to ask questions now, or if we can just kind of wait until both presentations are completed, and then we can revisit if there are any questions about that transfer. So for the ARPA update, oh, go ahead.
One more, just for a point of clarity. So as I mentioned, as well as Ramon, we looked at not using general fund money or the reserves, emergency reserves, to try to find some money. We did actually look, and with auditing, as well as county council and administration, and there is some money that was outlined. And so with regards to, it was outlined for affordable housing fee, and it's really a general fee for affordable housing units, just like we just purchased. So that would qualify, and we just think it's the best use of that money outside of the general fund. So I think it's a good thing. It's up to your board. We can open up for discussion after, but I just wanted to let the board know that. So Ramon, go ahead and continue.
Thank you, Ray. On the next slide, what you will see is the American Rescue Plan Act budget. And on the right-hand side, we have a column where it shows project completions. And I wanted to point out that even though we have 0% on some of these projects, they are a work in progress. And I discussed it with departments, and I believe at some point in a previous meeting, department heads also mentioned that they are looking at moving the project forward. And so there are two projects where it is at 0%, and that project was not started. And the one that's highlighted right now in front of you is a historical park bathroom. So we do have $750,000 available that can be used to reallocate. So you can reallocate that amount to other projects or something else. And then the other project that is not highlighted but also available is the historical park potable water project. So we did, Ray and I talked to Steve, and Steve mentioned $0 have been committed to that project. So that's also available. That's $100,000. And that concludes my brief presentation of the current budget. So I want everybody to know that we have $850,000 of ARPA money available to use in different projects. And the next presentation will be Gracie regarding the LATCF.
Zoom, right? So anyways, if I may, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to add a little bit more context to the ARPA budget that you have before you. So most of these items, as you can tell, there's some level of completion other than the two that were just mentioned. And really most of these items have been fully committed. There are some other items in here that have not been, as an example, item 20, 21, 22, those items, as well as 19. Those items, there has been work with regards to the design outside of the construction element of it. So basically, there's been work logistically on design and what we're gonna actually do with that. It's about $30,000 for almost all of those items, just on an average. Unfortunately, in item number 22, it does show $250,000 as the budget. In meeting with Steve, our Public Works Administrator, yesterday, he just received a more current quote, which is now looking like $550,000 total. So there's, even though there's been about, some money spent on that, we're already short in this budget. So we'll have to, if the board still wants to continue with that, which is fine, we're going to have to look at other funding outside of ARPA to fund that project totally. So we'll probably have to look at, impact fee, park impact fees, or some other funding that we have, which I think last report that we have is about $1 million that we have available with that. So, and basically the lighting just, with the times have just quadrupled in price. So the lighting itself is just outrageous. It's about $200,000, which was a lot more than originally budgeted for. So with that, I just wanted to make sure that you had a little more context with a couple more of those items. And there will probably be still more money that we need to finish a couple of these items as well. So with that, I'll pass it to Gracie and let her continue with the LATCF part of the presentation.
Thank you, CAO. Good morning again, Madam Chair, board members, and members of the public. I'll be doing a brief presentation on the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. This program was through the American Rescue Plan Act. They appropriated $2 billion to the Treasury across fiscal years 2022 and 2023 to provide payments to eligible revenue sharing counties as well as tribal governments. The purpose of this program was to serve as general revenue enhancement program. It was designed in part to provide supplemental existing federal programs and augmentize and stabilize revenues for recipients. That includes San Benito County. We did submit to the Treasury a request for this funding back in November of 2022. We were allocated in total $303,000. As mentioned, as you can see here on the slide, we have received the first allocation, which was in 2022 for the $165,000. We have not received the second tranche of funding, but that is, the date for that has not been determined yet, but we will be receiving it this year. I believe sometime during or around the budget. And then we do have a very broad discretion on how to use the funds. We can essentially use it as if it was generated through our own pockets of money. It can be used for any governmental purpose other than lobbying activity. We are able to kind of transfer to our pool LATCF funds with other entities for projects, provided that the use of funds is trackable and we can report accordingly on the program. Here we have some projects and programs that we can essentially allocate this funding towards. We can maintain or expand public services, invest in infrastructure, facilitate economic development, improve health outcomes, transition community to clean energy, increase workforce, improvement in service delivery, That includes technical infrastructure and data. On this next slide, we have a more exhaustive list of activities that can fulfill any governmental purpose. And I'll let this just here for a bit. Members of the public, if they want to go ahead and go through this, they can find this in the staff report as well. Ineligible uses, there isn't many, but there is just a few. We cannot directly or indirectly pay for any personal service, advertisement, telegram, either to favor, adopt, or oppose by vote or otherwise any legislation, laws, and so on. Anything that is deemed inappropriate for the program, we will be required to pay back those funds if they were used on it inappropriately. And just for reporting requirements, we are required to report on an annual basis, and that report is due in March of every year. For this first report, our first report is due March 31st, 2023, and it's just the first obligation and expenditure report. And this will be continuance until all expenses or all the funding is expended. And then here we have a brief overview of what we're reporting on. Cumulative obligations, current period expenditures. Staff will be preparing these reports and submitting them to the Treasury as needed. And then some potential project expenditures that we kind of just wanted to provide to the board is we can utilize the funding if the board wishes on public safety, to cover some of those costs. Ultimately, we want the board to kind of discuss what they want to use the funding for, if they have any projects in mind, but this is just one of our recommendations. And then ultimately, we are asking for the board to provide direction to staff on prioritizing eligible expenditures or create an expenditure framework. With that, I'll pass it back to the board for any questions or concerns.
Thank you. Let's go to public comment first.
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press *9 on your phone or the raise your hand icon on your screen. In chambers, we have Elia Salinas.
I just noticed, is there, because the podium is no longer there? Is COVID over? Is that what it is? I don't know. Just noticed that. Okay, so it was my understanding from one of the reports early on that these trailers, which look fantastic, I don't know if you guys have gone out there and taken a look at them, they're awesome, that there was already grant money, like $2-point-something million, and it was being used for the tiny homes, which they're not really tiny homes, but they are a facility out there. So I don't understand why they're asking for pulling money from somewhere else when it was already allocated. I mean, there's so many things that I just, they're asking permission, but they've already done it. Is that how I understand it correctly? So if we have the funds out there, and there's, there are funds that you can move from here to there. The sheriff's department is pretty understaffed. The sheriff's department has come to you for equipment, and and he came to you and he asked you for, he was going to, rob Peter to pay Paul within his own department to fund a new software system with the cameras and on the officers and on the patrol cars. Y'all remember that wasn't that long ago. So there was questions on that, and he told you there was only one source. Yet there are monies that can be moved around so that even he could even have funds to hire more officers. So $750,000 for the bathrooms. I mean, I don't know what the cost is going to be, but I think you've seen it, and you were at the retreat. So if you really want to do so, you can pull monies that are available that don't seem to be in need at the moment, that in the meantime, if you pull from one account, you have someone that's writing grants that can be specifically used for that. So I want you to, consider that when you guys make your decision today. Thank you.
On Zoom, you've been unmuted. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, my name is Wayne Norton, and today I'm representing the San Juan Bautista Rotary Club and our project to bring free internet to all the children in our school district who are on free and reduced lunch program. I probably don't have to remind the board some of the issues that we had at the beginning of the pandemic, when we had a lot of kids who couldn't participate in school because not even so much equipment, but they just can't get, there's no infrastructure for them to be able to access broadband. So, and we're working to solve that issue. And I'm asking today for the county to set aside $200,000 of so it's ARPA money from the various accounts for Rotary to finish this project. Our money is really going to go to make sure that the kids, all the kids on free and reduced lunch, have free internet for 5 years. And I think it's a worthwhile project. We've gone to all the meetings that we can. We went to the previous IT committee meetings and the previous board, and we've had a chance to come to this last one, to the newest IT committee. In fact, we thought that the former ARPA committee had already assigned some money for our project, but apparently in the transition, that didn't happen. And as a community-based organization, often it's very hard to figure out where to sort of make your pitch in government when government's making its decisions about these kinds of things. But we really think that we have a project that is essential so that we don't lose a generation of students. So I appreciate your consideration of setting aside $200,000 for the Rotary Club to be able to finish out this project. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, Valerie Eglin with Reach San Benito. It's really heart-wrenching to listen to the situations that so many applicants have. I do understand equipment for sheriffs. I understand broadband. There's so much out there that can be that need the ARPA funds. But the historic park bathrooms and potable water has been waiting and waiting and waiting. That park is used heavily by families. They have no drinking water there. People use it constantly, and that the Board of Supervisors has not put that money out there. And here the ARPA funds were allocated, and now because of storms and such, they're in question. And I get it. This is difficult decision making. But when the storms pass and there's no place for people to go, and they need to go to the parks just for respite, they need a bathroom and they need good water. Please keep it on your list. Thank you.
No further comments.
Thank you. Bringing it back to the board. Hold on one sec. CAO Espinosa.
I just wanted to add a point of clarity just so the board fully understands what we have before you. So we just wanted to let you know that the past board approved this, as you know, and bring back potentially, what we have, what's been done, what money potentially could be available for your board to allocate wherever you need to, if you wanted to. And let me just go through this list a little bit more. So we have not done anything with the historical park potable water, 0%. It's $100,000. Historical park bathrooms, $750,000. Items 19 through 22 would really probably be the other remaining money that would potentially be available, which equates to approximately $900,000. So liquid, or potentially for this board, if you wanted to move or change or do anything, you have approximately $2 million available to you if you wanted to. Now, we're not saying to do that. It's you're open for your discussion. So that would include the LTCF, the 300,000, approximately 900K plus the 750 and the 100. So that's what you have there. Now, again, it's entirely up to your board. We could, delve into it a little further. I don't know if I'm going to say, have an ad hoc, but we could definitely sit down and bring this back to your board again at a later date if you wanted to. But I think at this point, these are the numbers that we have. We got to, and one other thing you got to consider is that time is of the essence as well, because we got to get the work done timely. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say to you.
Okay, thank you. Francisco, did you?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Supervisors. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but I was encouraged by a friend of mine, and my staff as well. So one of the projects that we have up there is an elections project, and ultimately we all know the situation that my staff and the rest of the people and the volunteers work in. Our buildings from 1967, we have original paneling, original carpeting, and original chairs. But we make do what we have. We understand that there's greater circumstances and economic situations for the county. However, the one request we had for this one ARPA funding was that the bottom portion, the old courthouse, be remediated, as there is currently active asbestos in that room, so that we can have sufficient room for voting. Currently, during primary elections, we vote in that room, but in general elections, we have to carry everything outside. This is because there's not sufficient space or enough room to be able to put our voting equipment. Our request for this ARPA funds was to remove all the chairs, any paneling, and anything in that room. No renovation, nothing fancy, just concrete floors, so that we have an empty space that we can then put our voting equipment and can actually be accessible to people with wheelchairs and large numbers of voters. That is ultimately our request. The building itself, it's a bigger conversation. It does require a larger and more comprehensive study, but at this time, on behalf of the elections office, what I'm requesting is that we consider this project, which as of right now, we've only had conversations, and the last conversation was about a year ago. But this is a project in conversation that actually got started about 5 years ago, that we are at this point about 1% according to that graph. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me speak. Let me just tell you, I come in peace. I'd much rather follow Francisco than Valerie. That's a tough one to follow because of her passion and what she does for this community. Come up here like the bad person. But I needed to get in front of you on record just to make sure for my staff that I'm being supportive as the sheriff. It is so difficult. This is almost like family court at this point or probate. There's this bulk of money and now all the kids are coming out of the woodwork to try to claim it. So here's my pitch for what we're looking for. And I'm going to be coming back to the board in the next meeting with an update on our communications infrastructure. But I do want to point out, just for the record, that in the California Constitution, Article 13, Section 35 states, the people of the state of California find and declare the following. Public safety services are critically important to the security and well-being of the state's citizens and to the growth and revitalization of the state's economic base. And number two, the protection of the public safety is the first responsibility of local government, and local officials have an obligation to give priority to the provision of adequate public safety services. That's enshrined in our state's constitution. That's what we're all sworn to protect. And so all these, it's difficult in a county like ours where we're resource poor, or better to say we're not resource rich. And you're all put in a position, including our CAO, to listen to everybody's needs, which are all valid, and then have to make the difficult decisions to disappoint some of us. And if it's one thing you'll get from me is I will always be a team player, even though maybe sometimes I come off as being difficult. But we have a crisis with communications in this community. And I will tell you that if it's more appropriate, our communications infrastructure being our radio system, which for the record, again, the sheriff's office is merely a subscriber to the radio system. That radio system has police, city police, sheriff's office, fire, our county express services, our school buses, public works, and EMS. We're just one office that uses this system, and our channel seems to be the one that doesn't work. And so, unfortunately, we have reached out to multiple vendors to try to help us. The most recent one we had that finally engaged with us has a quote of just under $1 million to get our communications working correctly. This has often been said it's a problem in South County. It's not just a problem in South County. It's every single place in our county. Our radios don't work, and I don't have the money for it. And honestly, I don't think it's the responsibility of the sheriff's office to do that. It's county infrastructure that serves the entire county, from RMA to OES to the school system to the EMS system. It's everybody, and everybody's affected. And so the issues that we're having right now, and the most recent two I can tell you, we share a channel with the Hollister Police Department. There was a fight at the high school, and the school resource officer could not get out on his radio. That was just a physical fight. If that had been an active shooter and he could not communicate, the lives are at risk at that point. And I just went to a team building workshop with my staff, and I had one of the sergeants look at me in our team building workshop and say, "Sheriff, what are you going to tell our wives when we get killed because our radios don't work?" And I've had that on my shoulders ever since we got back from that workshop. So that's why I'm here in front of you today. I know that I have a huge ask in front of this board with the officer safety plan. I can promise you, I believe that is going to save us money in the future as we go forward with it and bring us into current policing. But this radio infrastructure problem is a county problem, not just a sheriff's office problem. And as we're going through this, I'm not saying it has to be ARPA money, but I'm saying that it's a crisis that we have to figure out. Public safety is our number one priority. And at the risk of being the bad guy, I don't want to take housing away from anybody. I don't want to shut the parks down. I want to have all of that as a community. But I will tell you, as the sheriff, we're not going to be able to enjoy any of those things if we're not able to keep everybody safe. That's all I have, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bring it back to the board. Supervisor Gonzalez, did you want to start?
Yes, please. Gracie, can you put the grid back up there about the budget for the ARPA, please? As the only sitting supervisor who was actually on the ARPA ad hoc, I find this request disgusting. Supervisors Tiffany and I spent over a year looking at all of the allocations. Elias Salinas is correct. Wayne Norton is correct. Valerie Eglin is correct, and so is Francisco Diaz. We looked at the health, safety, and welfare of this community. We looked at every single dollar coming in, and the money for the historical parks, though it might look like something to raid, it's like, when are you going to go raid grandma's cookie jar? And this is what we're doing. We spent time. We allocated funds. We have $3 million sitting there for placeholder for future homeless. Why can't we raid that fund? We can't be taken away from the parks, the elections, the vets park. We can't. We took this, the board approved this, and I really resent that this is being raided. The ARPA funds have been exhausted. And I understand that we're looking at an emergency situation to fund the purchase of the trailers, but there is emergency funds there. There is the general fund. We're a new board, and I understand that we have a discretion to go back and change something. But in 2 years, is someone else going to change a decision that we make today? When is a promise from the community to the community from this board a promise? We have told the community we're going to give them potable water. We told them we're going to give them bathrooms. We told them we're going to provide safety and security at the Hall of Records. When is our decision, our promise, going to be our word? I'm a person that lives by my word. My word is my bond. When I say something, I mean it. I will go to definitely ends to make sure that I meet my obligation. I was part of the IT and broadband committee, and Wayne Norton is correct. They have been asking for funds from this county through the ARPA funds. I think the number started at 400,000, and that was just too large of a number, so I couldn't support it. He's asking for 200 now. Well, look at item number 24. Can I still have that item, the graph up on the board there, please? Item number 24. This county in one meeting allocated $1 million for IT. We have spent 104,000. Let's take from there. Why are we, and again, this is county internal use. This is not anything that's going to benefit the community. This was one meeting, one vote, and we as a county, I didn't vote for it, decided to give the IT department $1 million. I'd rather give some of it to the sheriff's office for his communication issues rather than holding it in-house. The placeholder of $3 million. I understand homeless is a big problem here in this community, but that's been sitting there for how many years now? If we're going to raid something, let's raid something that can afford it, not these piddly little amounts that are going to benefit the entire community. And Valerie's right. With COVID, people need a respite. They need to get out. You don't have drinkable water out there at the historical park. They don't have functioning bathrooms. And then going back to the Vets Park, that was a health and safety issue. Lighting out there, pedestrians almost getting hit, just trying to leave the field to get to their vehicles. We promised them that we were going to make it safe. And this is now almost going on a year that we've had this conversation. And I really resent the fact that we now are sitting here deliberating, trying to take that away. I'm going to vote no on this item. And then I appreciate the presentation about the local assistance and travel consistency, but we had a item on the agenda where we had a very volatile audience that was angry at us that we were not doing anything toward tribal relationships. If this money is set aside for tribal, I don't want to raid that either. I would like to use that toward building relationships with our tribal neighbors. We have some issues here in the community with the Native Americans, and I would love to mend those fences and keep tribal money for tribal funds. I don't support this at all. Thank you.
Supervisor Kozmicki.
Thanks, Madam Chair. For starters, I fully support using the inclusionary funds for the RVs. I'm very appreciative of staff for finding these solutions, and that just makes a lot of sense. So thank you on that. Second, with all due respect, CAO, I do not support an ad hoc on this. We've already done that, and I feel like let's just work it out here today. That's why we're here, and I'd rather not have two supervisors. I was on prior to the ARPA, I was on the CARES funding, and I do recall when we went through that, it was more of an open discussion, and when we got the ARPA recommendations, it was almost like, and there were a lot of, as we see, there were a lot of expenditures on there, and I regret not speaking up earlier, but it was almost like it was set in stone when I feel like there should have been more discussion on some of these items. So first off, I do very strongly support San Juan Bautista Rotary's project. Obviously, it's in my district for the most part, and so I get that. But I also will say I feel like it's a very productive use of money. It would be far-reaching use of funds, and I also support the use of non-general fund monies as presented here for the and it seems like the LATCF fund would make sense on the sheriff's office equipment. That was obviously a big hang up of mine when we had that discussion, as far as wanting to make sure it's not being pulled from the general fund, so that the sheriff's office has more
available dollars for resources. So I definitely support using that outside general fund funding source. And then as far as the list, as the sheriff mentioned, I mean, it's tough when you get into these discussions, and I understand all these are worthwhile projects. I wish we could fund every single project that everybody wants funded. It's just not reality. And so you have to look at things from a perspective of priorities. And so what is the most essential? What is the most urgent use of these dollars? And I believe that was really the point of ARPA. It was, we were in a pandemic and there was urgency to it. And it really shouldn't have been this sort of, open wallet sort of approach to addressing miscellaneous expenditures. It really should have been about what is urgent right now in our world? What do we need to address? What is public safety wise? What is health and safety wise? That really, to me, should have been more restrictive, to be really frank about it, from the federal government perspective. And so I see the historical park bathrooms, I see historical park ADA bathrooms roof, I see historical park potable water, and I see IT infrastructure, and then I see homeless shelter expansion, and I see broadband. And I have to ask myself, and I see the sheriff's equipment, and I have to ask myself, when you list those off, what are the priorities? And to me, that's pretty obvious that the park upgrades would not be at the top of that list, and everything else would be above those for me. That doesn't mean we can't address some of the historical park needs. I think we could probably address most of them and still have money to put toward, and hopefully for me, this broadband project, which would serve a very much needed segment of our community. And I'll just point out, most people don't really, you think of Aromas or you think of San Juan. I think there are a lot of misconceptions with those areas. And I know the chair and Supervisor Gonzalez have, vast experience with San Juan Bautista. And I do as well, being living in that area, but also when I coached football, I learned really quickly when I coached there at Anzar, my perceptions of that area of the county were dead wrong. There is a lot of poverty in the San Juan Aromas area, the San Juan Valley. And there are a lot of children that don't have broadband and a lot of poor families that can't afford it. And so I do also understand it's just the western portion of the county. It's my district. I think there's always give and takes with some of these things. For instance, we have, a lot of District 4 items on this list that we just saw. And I understand there's always a balance and we always have to work together with each other. But I do expect that this would just be the start, talking to these folks and being involved and having meetings with Wayne and Phyllis Barza and some of these folks. This, for them, is just the start. And I know they have plans to expand outward after this into other areas of the community. I know they've talked about, for instance, Southside migrant camp and some of those areas over there. So I'll try to wrap up here, but I don't think you're going to get, as far as the Rotary, I've said my piece on the sheriff's equipment. I think that's a no-brainer to use that additional funding that our staff found. But you're not going to get a more efficient use of ARPA money, considering, for instance, the massive amount of volunteer hours that have already gone into this broadband project and that will go into this broadband project. It would be an extremely efficient use of the money. And then combined with the Chromebook hotspot program that we have going through the library, I feel like we would finally be taking some pretty significant steps in the right direction when it comes to broadband and serving our lower income residents. So I'll be supporting that. I'm hoping that we can support finding a way to shift over $200,000 as suggested by Wayne Norton to the broadband project. And again, when we're weighing priorities, we just have to ask ourselves, what is more important between providing internet access to low-income families, providing adequate sheriff's equipment, having adequate IT infrastructure versus items that perhaps aren't quite as high on the priority list. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Kozmicki, if I may, I would agree with you regarding that, but I would make it with the provision that it comes out of the IT funds, and I would suggest $250,000 toward Ansar School, because what the Rotary Club is doing is very admirable, and they have been asking for funds for quite some time. They have been waiting, so I would be your second on that.
I just,
Well, I can talk after. No, let's share.
Supervisor Curl.
This is the part of the job I don't like. And I'm just gonna say it. This is not fun. Anybody that thinks this is fun, I mean, last night I read all of this over the weekend. I was up last night, really sweating bullets over which way I was gonna go on this. And I'm here both Supervisor Gonzalez and Supervisor Kosmicki. You know, a commitment was made, you know, Rob and Peter to save Paul, but also let's go back to what the point of the ARPA funding was. ARPA funding is due to COVID. Am I correct? And the impact of COVID on our community. And we know that there's a topic that we're not talking about here right now that I have to just sort of say there's other urgent matters in our community that we don't know how are going to unfold. I do agree that the sheriff's communication is a priority because it is life safety. Anything that's life safety is a priority to me. The $3 million in set aside money for acquisition of property, I kind of want to have a conversation about that if we can. After attending the CSAC at home presentation, and I know several staff members were on that Zoom meeting, and Supervisor Gonzalez was in Sacramento in person at the meeting. It's definitely a priority for CSAC, which is, if you don't know, it's the Association of Counties in the state of California. They recognize that we have a serious problem when it comes to our homeless situation, and the roles and the responsibilities are not clearly defined between the county and the city. The duties that all good intentions for us to address the problem, but the problem's bigger than the budget of just the county of San Benito. And that $1 million or that $3 million might better be used right now in urgent matters like communication, like the other topic we're not discussing, and just really having a conversation about how this might be able to work out. And looking at grant funding for broadband. There's so much grant funding out there for broadband. You know, if we give $250,000 or $200,000 out to the Rotary, I'm all for the mission of what they're trying to do. But do we lose out on funding that could actually be funding we could go after and give to them or collaborate with them? I don't know. These are things I don't have answers for. I just, right now, I do have one question about the budget adjustment. Let me pull it up. $157,837 would be coming from the tiny homes. That is a state-funded account from HHSA. Is that correct?
Can you repeat?
The $157,837 that tiny homes additional costs.
Oh.
Is that funding a state funded account that would be coming into the general fund to help reimburse for the trailers?
It's not state.
Or federal?
So it's, it was, I think this is what you're talking about. It's for the project. So basically a development that occurred here, there was an obligation to in lieu fees for affordable housing. So it's a separate project, separate pot of money that we're using for the tiny homes and the 11 trailers up at the migrant camp. So that's the request that we're making outside of this. We kind of don't want to, I can hear everyone's concerns. We want to try to keep this as whole as possible, right, as well as keep our general fund as whole as possible. So that's the reason why we were looking at other funds. So it's outside funding associated with development.
And with the understanding that these trailers, after the use of the storm victims, would be utilized for homeless and for tiny homes for families that need transitional
housing. Absolutely.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. Okay. And then the transfer out of the $579,000. What account is that? I don't know 288.70.
Well, where are you looking at?
I'm looking at the.
Oh.
the actual budget adjustment.
Yeah, and I'll defer that to Ramon, but that is that is where the payment's going to actually happen. But Ramon, go ahead and elaborate further on the actual numbers.
So the Fund 288 is the Inclusionary Housing Impact Fund, and that's where the in lieu fees are being recorded. Am I coming through? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ramon.
Okay, good. So that's basically what's happening is we're using, like Ray was saying, we're using a separate pot of money. That pot of money is the Inclusionary Housing Impact Fund. That's the 288 line you see there. So we're moving money out of that fund, and we're going to be using that to put money in the disaster recovery division to pay for the trailers instead of using emergency reserves.
Okay, thank you, Ramon. So clarifying right now, the budget adjustment that's here has nothing to do with ARPA funding and transferring of ARPA funding at all. The conversation about ARPA funding is just a possibility for other items. So if we are going to be looking at other life safety issues in our community, which we know there's more than just communication life safety issues, I recommend that we look at that $3 million and hold off on acquiring property before we know what's going to happen legislatively with the at-home program that is being advocated by the CSAC. That's where I'm at. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may just elaborate further, just for clarity purposes. Your board during the board retreat had asked to come back if there was other options. Potentially use ARPA funding. Well, the board already approved all the allocation of that. That's the reason why this item, ARPA, as well as the other item that we have on there using the inclusionary funding is on there because that was a request from your board. So I just want to be very clear that we're trying to find money outside of the general fund.
Supervisor Zenger?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we all understand this is not like fun. This is difficult, but it just is what it is. So I have a few points to make. So first of all, I'm thankful for the Rotary Club, the work they do out there. Personally, and I know this is sort of a hot take. In my opinion, the broadband issue is not a huge priority. That's just my honest opinion. But more importantly, I want to talk about the bathroom situation at the historical park, because the talk is as if there is no bathrooms there, which, unless I'm confused, isn't correct. Because I was there a few weeks ago, and my wife and I both used the bathroom. So there is functioning bathrooms currently. Is that correct, CO?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure we're talking about that. So, and I get it. It's not good. It's no fun to take money and move it around like this. But there is functioning bathrooms at the historical park, right? I mean, potable water, I think, is very important. But just being realistic about priorities, I mean, we just got to be realistic about it and see what's important and what isn't. I mean, I know that the sheriff's item is obviously a priority. I mean, I think so. So I just want to throw those things out there. I will say I'm big on the inclusionary fees, using that money, the in lieu fees. I think that's a great idea. I like that. But I'm not outright opposed to moving some of the ARPA money around for this. So that's just my opinion on it.
Thank you. So I appreciate the using it out of the inclusionary housing impact. I hear Supervisor Gonzalez and as well as Supervisor Kosmicki. I do support the $200,000 to the San Juan Rotary for the broadband. And I agree wholeheartedly with Supervisor Curro about looking at the $3 million item number 6 placeholder for land acquisition. I think we have a real responsibility sitting up here and making sure that public safety is our priority. And so I would really like to see us bring back that item as well as the communications, the county infrastructure,
in regards to communications with potentially this $1 million price tag. I think, you know, we'll all be sitting here blaming each other if we ever have a horrible disaster here. And so I would like to get out in front of it, make sure that we are proactive and prepared for any things that happen in our community. And so I think that's a real priority. So the other items on the ARPA, I would leave as is for the moment. I don't know where we find this 200,000. Is there room in the IT? I'm sure there was, it says IT, but was there something more to, you know, security? I don't know. Is there room to take it out of IT or no, there's not.
No, there's no rooms. Oh,
We're trying to get our PRA software by the end of this fiscal year. We're estimating it may come in under the estimated cost, but I don't want to move it today, but we can try to do that by June. We might have some free in that line item.
and just for clarity, there's multiple facets that make up that $1 million. So that's just one of them, one piece of software from county councils.
But I thought
office.
PRA software is a separate line item. It's number 12 at 250,000.
There's other pieces of software within that line item, within the $1 million. But right now we have about $500,000 for switches and other things. We brought this back to the board, so there's already been.
So we don't want to take it
motion.
out of
There's
IT
already
per
things been
se.
in motion, also staffing as well for broadband. So that money more or less is already been spent. But we haven't spent it yet, so that's why it's not doesn't
Right.
show up here. So.
Madam Chair, I just want to dovetail on that, working for the county and now being on the IT committee, understanding that infrastructure is also a security risk for our county
No, I get
is a
that.
huge issue. And so I would support not taking it from IT.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's why I wanted to clarify. I believed it was all full. So maybe part of the $3 million item 26, possibly we could look at taking 200,000 and for the broadband for San Juan Rotary. And I believe they, as far as grants, I do believe they have a grant. They're working. I believe this is somewhat kind of a matching fund. Would that be correct, Supervisor? Yes.
Yeah, they're working on other funding sources.
Yeah. So this is just a portion of the total that is needed for the broadband. I think the sheriff had a comment.
Well, I'll remark after.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you looking at me freaking out on my chair. I'm not coming to ask for more money. So there's $100,000 that was earmarked for sheriff's communications in this ARPA funding. Honestly, that was a Band-Aid that was trying to nip at the bud of the larger problem of the communication issue. It was going to make when our staff's out there talking on these little handheld radios with little batteries on them, that's 5 watts of power. The car puts out 50 watts of power. So it just pushes the signal out further. So what that $100,000 was going to do is double the output of each car to 100 watts and make a connection between the 5-watt radio and the car to make every little radio 100 watts. That was a step towards fixing the larger issue that's potentially going to be fixed if we go down the path of the 900,000 complete communications upgrade. I would be willing to support moving that $100,000 that has not been spent yet towards the broadband project from what's allocated to my office, with the hope that if we do the larger, we find funding for the larger project, maybe that wouldn't be a necessity at that point because the radio system would be functioning and this wouldn't just be a Band-Aid. So I just want to offer that to be a team player to move that $100,000 towards that. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question while you're there?
Yes, ma'am.
So there also is item 15 handheld radio program. Is that sheriff's department as well?
I don't believe so.
No, that's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you offering that up.
Okay, thank you.
As do I,
Madam Chair.
thank you.
Madam Chair, can
Yeah.
I make
Madam
a
Chair.
suggestion based off that?
Supervisor
Sorry.
Kosmicki?
If there's a willingness, and I appreciate the sheriff's offer on that, to move the 100,000 and then have that as a allocation toward the project, but then also potentially if there's some remainder funds from the county counsel's office software program expenditure, that could be earmarked as a potential fallback as well to fulfill the rest of that, or some of that at least.
Supervisor Kozmicki, do you know how time sensitive the San Juan Bautista Rotary request is for this 200,000?
I know they've been working on it for a while, and it's, time is of the essence when it comes to, these things. And that's what I've understood, and I would be fine inviting, if you're okay with it, Wayne back on to answer that, because he would certainly be better to answer that than I would. But I do know that it's always urgent when it comes to, kids that don't have internet access. And there are a lot of kids in that area that don't have internet access.
Can we see if maybe Wayne Norton is still on the line and if maybe he'll answer some of these questions for us, please?
Thank you for this discussion. I really appreciate the depth that the board is going into, and I also really appreciate Sheriff Taylor's offer to be a team player. And so do we. We want to be a team player. We don't need the money tomorrow, but here's the urgency issue, is that we're going out and trying to raise funds in the private sector. And almost the first question they ask is, well, where's the county? How much is the county participating in this? Where's the government support? And, we have to sort of, right now, we're kind of tap dancing, to tell you the truth. And we're saying, well, we expect that the county will be the county is supportive of our project, and we're expecting them to, that we'll expect the county to participate. So that's the urgency piece. We have a little time, a few months. The infrastructure is being worked on now, and that we can't pay for the access until the infrastructure gets in, but the infrastructure is going on. By the way, this money, we're not anticipating to build a lot of infrastructure with this money. This is about getting broadband into poor families. And Supervisor Gonzalez taught in that district, and so she can tell you sort of the issues with poverty in that district. So we can wait. What I really think is important is just the commitment. I don't need a check tomorrow, but if I can get the county's commitment to funding the project, that would be a terrific help as we go out and seek other money. Thank you.
Question for you, and you're correct. I did teach in that district for 12 years, and so I saw students progressing from kinder all the way to high school, and so it is an area that I'm very well versed in. And Supervisor Kozmicki is right. There are a lot of free and reduced lunch. The percentage there of families on that type of program it's a very high percentage. But going back to your numbers, I know that when the ARPA ad hoc was meeting, we were looking at a very large number, 400,000, and then now we're looking at 250, 200, and then I heard Supervisor Kozmicki, suggest maybe 100,000. What number are you looking at for us as a commitment? Because whatever that number is, I would like to be able to commit that. What would you accept?
Well, Supervisor Gonzalez, we will accept whatever you're willing to give us, to be frank. I mean, a couple of years ago, we put in a written request for $1.3 million. We are going to fund the entire amount, and then that, Ray helped us understand, CAO Espinoza helped us understand that that's probably unrealistic. So, we think we need $600,000 to be able to provide free internet service for 5 years to every poor kid in our school district, every single poor kid in our district in Aromas and San Juan. So that's the number that we ultimately would like to get. We're working with the ISP, who's going to be funding its own infrastructure costs. So that's ultimately the number is $600,000 is really what we're going for. So anything that you can give us helps us move that needle, and also helps us raise money with the private donations.
From there, and you can fundraise the remainder. I'd be good with that number. Yes, 200,000.
Hey, Wayne, I've got a question for you on how does this play into with the hotspots that are provided from the library. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the relationship of having the broadband with the hotspots?
Yeah, just a a quick moment of history, Supervisor Sotelo. You know, when the Rotary Club first got in this, we thought that we could just buy a couple hotspots and write out, you know, a couple little checks and then wash our hand of it, and that, you know, we had cured the problem. Until we realized that the real problem in our portion of the county is being able to get broadband, period. No matter if you had $1 million computer, it isn't going to help you get broadband if you don't have access. So that's kind of where we started. We knew we had to sort of go back and start building infrastructure to start with. We're not, none of this money in this project is going to go to hotspots or laptops or any of that kind of stuff. This is strictly for access, access to the internet, so that we can make sure that income isn't a barrier to kids being able to participate in school.
And Madam Chair, and the hotspots are for 1 year, so that's
Okay.
yeah. So that
Okay.
they go 1 year, and this would probably time out pretty well with that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments, questions from the board? Supervisor Curro?
I see here, and I don't know why I didn't notice this before, we've got the 2.5 million in matching funds for one of the grants for the library. Where's the 5 million in matching funds?
Yeah, it is 5 million.
Okay, so where's that? It's not
Library
from-
impact fees is the
Library
remainder.
impact fees. Okay, I
That
just
is
wanted to
correct.
clarify, we don't have another problem that's going to be coming
No, we-
around, and I'm going to have Nora here. Nothing against Nora, love her to death, but you know how passionate she can be.
Oh yeah,
I love the passion in this community. Thank you.
Yes. And just if I may, Madam Chair. So just to add just a little more clarity on the $3 million. So with regards to the land acquisition, obviously there's been a request from the board to address homelessness within our community and find a site. And so the board has been really instrumental in that for over the years to try to find a great site for that. And that's why the money's been allocated, just so the public is aware of that. We did have a caveat, though, was that we would be going after grants, home key, room key, some other grants, potentially to free that money up. And I know that the next go around, we're actually applying for grants for that very purpose. So, you know, we could potentially, you know, allocate this 3 million somewhere else if we receive the grant. But again, it's going to be up to your board. You know, if we don't have those funds, to be able to use those funds as well. So it's, you know, with the crystal ball, we don't know what we're going to get. Again, and we were just, you know, having that. But again, just keep in mind, time is of the essence. So as time moves on, we're going to have to spend that money pretty soon. And if there's going to be any development, any design work, any kind of sequel, you know how that goes. So that can take a while. So we just need to be mindful of all of that. So, yeah.
Any other comments from the board? No? So, I think we have a few things going on here. Let's see if I can figure all this out. So do you need a motion, authorizing usage of the affordable housing fees to purchase the trailers and fund the tiny homes? Okay, so let's have that be maybe our first motion is, using the affordable housing fees to purchase the trailers and to fund the tiny homes project. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion as recommended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 5-0.
That's a no from me.
Okay. So 4-1. Then the other is bringing back the $3 million for us to look at that line item as it relates to the county infrastructure communications project. Somebody want to make a motion on that?
Madam, I'm confused on the 3 million. Which part is that? Are you
For the ARPA, it was, I can't remember the number, item 20
26.
something.
Number 26.
26 is land.
It's a placeholder land acquisition. That's the 3 million.
Oh, the 3 million for the homeless.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Okay.
thought you said communication, so I'm sorry.
Well, it would be looking at that
looking at
and then looking at the communications,
Yeah.
possibly the $1 million in the county infrastructure work in regards to the communication system.
Would that also include looking at the $200,000 for the San Juan Rotary? conversation, or?
It can be, or it can be a separate. I mean, the sheriff's just, well, it can be because the sheriff just offered up, if that was a possibility, they would give up their 100,000. I saw there also was 60,000 plus left over in COVID testing for staff. I'm thinking maybe that's another that's 60,000 additional dollars maybe we might be able to use. And then Barbara mentioned that she may have a little bit left over on that PRA software, but we don't really know. But it looked like there was 60,000 left on that COVID testing. I'm guessing we're kind of done with the COVID testing at this point.
Yes, we are, but we still need to, I guess, finalize the books on everything. So I don't want to say for sure on that.
Okay, but I mean, that's,
but potentially we could, come back with more accurate numbers. And again, all of these, again, this is a budget. So, as I mentioned earlier, we budgeted for lighting at Vets Park, and now we're over budget. There's going to be some items that are going to be under budget. So it's just really going to be, it really is going to depend, I guess. So,
Right.
yeah.
And I was going to ask, when can we get a finalization? Because if there's numbers floating here and there, we might have some sort of excess. So when can the board receive a finalization on?
Yeah, this is, again, just keep in mind, staff, Public Works is doing a lot of this work. And they're overseeing it with county council administration. And right now they're just, priority is to flood. So for some odd reason, there's always some sort of an emergency the last 3 or 4 years. But I will say as soon as they can, again, we're, they're working on it. And I can't give you an answer. I mean,
So-
there's just,
okay.
it's going to come in time. And once we get these projects done, and we, I think with, just to keep in mind, 2024, our goal is to have all this done. And I really feel strongly that we probably need to come back to you in about 6 months to give you an update of where we're at with that, because we may need to divert the funds somewhere else. if
So
we
I
can't
think,
get the projects
I think we should bring back the 3 million though sooner, I think
call.
as soon as
It's your
possible.
call. It's your call.
And look at the communications and the
Can
broadband.
I make a suggestion as
Yes.
a motion?
Yes, please.
To piggyback on Supervisor Curro's and Wayne Norton's comment about needing the commitment. My suggestion would be, as a motion, would be to reallocate $200,000 for now of the $3 million, not for now, but to reallocate 2 million of the 200,000 of the 3 million from the homelessness, with the potential of backfilling the $3 million until we make a final decision on that. Potentially with if the sheriff does not end up needing the radio communication, and if Barbara Thompson's office does not need the full $250,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So 5-0.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 2.4, County Library.
No.
Where's everybody going?
I don't know if we do or not, but okay. So, yeah, just for a point of clarity,
Mm-hmm.
the LTCF, because you guys just it was just a 3 million piece, right? So
The 3 million.
Oh,
with the LTCF,
oh,
we leave that.
Are we putting that toward, I'm so sorry, we're putting that toward the sheriff's.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Is that
So
what we're-
that's
Did we make that clear?
We didn't make that
we
clear.
didn't make that clear, and that's why I'm like, wait a minute. I think we need to go back.
And
to
then
this.
we haven't done the budget transfer portion either of it.
I think you.
Was that included in the motion and the
Yeah,
second?
that was the first one.
We
That
did
was the
that
first
already.
item that we did,
We did that
the
already.
housing.
We
Okay.
did that already. We just the LTCF. So I think
Can
if
I
you,
make a motion that we use the LATCF for the sheriff's office equipment for this fiscal year, and then potentially next fiscal year if some of that money is remaining? Or wait, is that wrong?
No. I'm just okay. I just want to be clear. Is that the Axon piece or is that the communications piece?
For the Axon.
Okay, just want to be
I
clear.
think that seemed to be the conversation. I felt like there was somewhat consensus there.
Okay.
But yeah, that's.
And I
that's
would
what
second that.
Okay, perfect. It's 330.
I personally would rather use the emergency funds for that. I really don't want to tap into the tribal funds yet. Again, we are trying to build relationships with our neighboring community.
Well, I guess I'm a little bit confused on this because I thought the sheriff said he was going to fund that out of his budget. So I guess maybe are we being a little
Premature.
should we maybe have some discussions with him about this prior? I mean, I feel like almost this item should be maybe delayed to a future meeting.
So the item for him, the Axon's going to come back to your board because it's a pretty big number. So we're going to have specifics. Then we
But
will,
he said that it was not going to come back to the Board of Supervisors,
Well,
that was going
it
to.
needs to come back
It was
to
going to
the
come out of his budget.
no, it's going to have to come back to the board because I don't, it's going to come out of his budget for this year. The project is
9 years additional.
is a huge ask over the years to come. So I think that's the question I have is okay, where is it going to come out of in future years? And that's why I think it needs to come back, or at least staff will need to work with the sheriff on that. Unfortunately,
I know, he just left. That's why I feel like we need to.
He just left. This item can come back. I just wanted to make sure we were clear with the LTCF. We can come back with that. It doesn't need to be decided today. The LTCF does not. It's just there's $300,000 available.
Based on sorry, Madam Chair, based on Supervisor Gonzalez's concerns, I think we should bring it back and have a
Yeah,
conversation.
that's fine.
Is that-
I just wanted to be clear. We still have those monies. We didn't execute anything with that within the motion and the second.
Okay, so will someone withdraw the motion?
Yeah, that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
yes, I feel bad because he offered up $100,000. Yes, I'll withdraw the motion. I do, on the record, feel strongly I'd rather use, non-general fund dollars. It seems like a logical place. And in talking to staff and researching a little bit, I think the name of the fund itself is maybe a little misleading. I don't think it's necessarily fully intended to for relationships with tribal entities. It's very, very broad discretionary use. I think the terminology just is probably, unfortunately, should have been used differently. But that for down the road, I'm going to support outside funds, but yes, I'll withdraw for now. That's
Okay, thank you.
Do I have to second
so-
that? To withdraw? Okay,
Sure, you
I
did.
agree. We're going to withdraw that right now. We're going to bring it back. Thank you, Colin.
I would love to
thank you
maybe
so much.
explore Supervisor Gonzalez's idea of maybe, what can maybe be done, but then also having a conversation with the sheriff, so.
Yeah, and I think we just, again, I'm not clear, and that's what I need to be clear, and I think, I think the board needs to be clear as well. So that's why I feel like it needs to come back, at least for clarity purposes. That's.
And just to elaborate, I'm the only supervisor on the record that chastise our local Native American population. And so I think I, as a supervisor, have a lot to do to mending the bridge. And so I don't want to be perceived as, utilizing monies when there might be a ask from them.
No, I appreciate that. Okay, so item 2.4.
Oh, awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, let me get settled here. We do have Nora on the line, and this actually came out of our facilities committee, and the facility committee recommended that it come back to the board because it was split on either allowing the library to use Strata Verde's site for usage. So we have Nora here. Nora, can you go ahead and present this item?
Sure. Good morning, board members and members of the public. I'm sorry I'm not able to be present this morning because of the flooding situation. But it is an exciting time for the library, for the community, because of how we are so extremely busy. And with the more population coming in, more people are taking advantage, of the programs at the library. We have a slew of programs like story time, literacy, teen STEAM programs, homework club, passports, and even a sewing club that, we have attendants that come. So with that being said, it presents its challenges as well, having to do with space needs, capacity needs, safety needs as well. So we're wanting to be able to continue conversations with the Strata Verde Information Center to see the possibilities of maybe having some of these programs even now, because we are so busy, our library is so small, where we can have programs that we can hold there in order to be able to continue them. And also with the upcoming closure of the library as we expand and update our libraries, it'll even be more crucial then as well.
So what Nora's asking for is to get board consensus to utilize that space. So we'll turn it back to your board.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
On Zoom, please press star 9 on the raise your hand icon. In Chambers, please for our speaker card. We have Elia Salinas.
Thank you. The space is there. The space is grand. The space is not being utilized. And the offer is there. Somewhere along, I've heard that it may not look good, that there's some kind of affiliation with a company that's trying to develop a business here in San Benito County. I don't see that there's any conflict because those people, the kids at the library, if they don't have a place to go and they're being offered that, by all means, let them be there. I don't see a conflict. Strata Verde has come here and has stated that they want to help this community, and what a great way to do this. They have the lease of the building for quite a long time. I don't feel that there's a conflict, and I hope that you as the board don't see that there's a conflict. If I can't think of another building within the city or within the county that's is accommodating to something like this, that they're allowing to open up to the public. And if you feel that you personally believe that it would be an influence on a vote, just remember that you have to do when you're up here is you're making decisions for the entire community. And I think that this is a great idea. And it's not a personal opinion based on you to think that it's going to influence a vote. I look at it as that the community has an opportunity, especially those that will not be able to go to the library, to be able to use the facility. So please do not think that by using this facility that they're trying to buy a vote. They're actually trying to be part of the community. Thank you.
On Zoom, you've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. This is Valerie Eglin with Reach again. I think that Nora's request for the use of this space is legitimate and good. It's a dry, clean area, easily accessible. And as Elia has mentioned, this should not be looked upon as a political act. It is a community thing. And I don't think that they're putting any strings on it. They're not saying, well, for your support, we will give you this space for a couple of hours. No, they are really trying to reach into the community to be part of the community. And should the community decide that, or if their planning is not in line with what the county needs, that's a totally different situation. So I would agree that it's a good opportunity for the library to have. Thank you.
You've been unmuted. Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
This is Wayne Norton. I'd like to thank Strata Verde for letting us use, for letting various nonprofits that I've been involved with use that building. I I can't tell you how many times we've used that building. It's unique in its availability. It's a way to, you can configure that building into just about any kind of way that you need it for whatever meeting that you have. Plenty of parking, centrally located. And I think the question really is, does the library have another option? And if the library doesn't have another option, I'm hard pressed to think of another building in the county that would suffice for what she needs. Anyway, I think it's an opportunity, and with the lack of a alternative, I think it's probably a gift that we can accept. Thank you.
No further comments.
Thank you. Bringing it back to the board. You want to go first? Supervisor Kosmicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a couple questions. So I've never seen anything like this involving an active, very large, development application. There are two sides to this thing. We're going through a very lengthy process, and we basically just getting started on that process. So again, I've never seen this before, where a county government would, on this level, sort of, I guess, partner with somebody who's actively applying for this level of development. Can anyone answer, do we know if there are any examples of something like this happening before, either here or elsewhere, where a county or city government did this sort of thing with an active project application?
I'll
might be perception.
I'll invite up Abraham Prado, if that's all right with your board. From my understanding, no, but I don't know. I'll leave it to the person that goes through this process in the planning side.
Thank you, CEO Espinosa. Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board. We've processed various projects. Of course, I've only been here less than a year here at the county, but I bring over 15 years of experience. And when it comes to situations in this of this sort, I think just the number one concern would be just any type of conflict of interest. But I really personally haven't really dealt with any particular situation in the past where the applicant is willing to assist. But we just want to make sure that if anything like this ever comes up, we just want to make sure there's no conflict of interest, and that's the case, and then we proceed.
Okay. And then the second question, do we have any other potential, does anything come to mind? I know we've talked about utilizing, my favorite word, utilize, using other space, you talked about maybe using space for our county supervisor offices. Was it the old behavioral health building?
Yeah, we have no space. I mean, I'll just just keep it as simple as that. We have very limited space.
What about the offices where Supervisor Gonzalez and I reside in the old courthouse?
What about them?
For passport services?
I don't know. I have to talk to
because I'd be willing to give up my office. I just feel that strong about this, that this, we have to go through the process. This is potentially some pretty bad optics for the county.
Nora, the question is, how much space do you need to utilize for passport services and the other services, if you had any other services you were going to do from the Go ahead, Nora.
We need at least, if we're doing like simultaneous programs, that's another space that we would need. I would say that when I looked at the Supervisors space, it seemed ample enough to be able to have simultaneous programs. I don't know the size of the office that Supervisor Kosmicki is speaking about. Would it suffice for story time? Would it suffice for Supervisor Kosmicki, what approximately is the size of that office that you are speaking about?
Maybe a 10 by 10.
So if we're talking about, so thank you, Nora, for that. So we're talking about story time. We're talking about all these things. I mean, why don't the Stradivari just give us a library then? I'm just confused. I honestly am. And I've never seen anything like this before. It's very obvious, and it's very obvious to me that I'm just going to say it. This is pandering, and this is a project application. It's a very, very high interest project, and it's not going to look good for this county. And it's a clear conflict of interest for this county. And the public is, and I have not made my mind up. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the public is undeniably divided on this project, and the optics make me extremely uncomfortable. And if we approve this and then approve the project, it's going to open the door for perspectives that was done partly, at least, because of this sort of relationship. So I just don't think we're this desperate for passport services and story time to make this sort of what I would call PR blunder. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Madam Chair, let's be honest, Supervisor Kozmicki, you've actually already made a decision on this. We've heard from your side comments, but that's neither here nor there. We might even be jumping the cart before the horse here, in that Nora is asking to have open conversations with Stradivari just to utilize it. There's nothing that's being asked for per se yet. It's merely to open conversations. When this was brought to the facilities committee, you and I disagreed there at that meeting, and that's why it's on the agenda now. But it's basically to open up conversations to see if that's even viable. And I did my homework. I not only called Nora, but I also called Anthony Botello. And this might be a moot point at this point because of the changes, what has happened with the Stradivari, the management. And so I think we just need to give Nora the permission to start talking, to see what her needs are, and see if this is even viable. So I don't even want to get into the political gist, the conflict of interest that you perceive. I just want to give Nora the opportunity to speak, because for some reason, the facilities committee bound Nora and wouldn't even allow her to engage in conversations, which I resent. So furthermore, the Stradivari site is an awesome site. What other site do we have in this community other than the epicenter to be able to hold public meetings? And I don't know how often you go into the library, but in the last 30 days, I've been in there 4 times. And each time it is congested. And there's no room for them to operate. And I appreciate you bringing the update on the library expansion, because you're right, it's desperately needed. We all need to know. But Nora is trying to provide services to the community, programming, and she can't do it in the confines that she has in the current space. And so I don't want to get into the political aspect or the optics. I just want to give her the opportunity to have that dialogue and that conversation to see if even that's even a potential for use, because it may be a moot point at this point. But for us to just bind a department head from even engaging in conversations, that to me is controlling, and I don't think this board should have done that. Yeah. So I would like to make sure we give Nora the opportunity to engage in conversations and then bring it back to us to see what the decision is.
Supervisor Zanger?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll say this is rather odd to me. The Stradivari building's a nice building. I've been in there. I liked it when it was Rancher's Feet. It's a nice building. I'm not questioning that, but it's obvious that the politics around Stradivari are salient in the community, to say the least. It's has been a contentious issue in the past, and I think it still is with a lot of the community. And I understand we need space for these services, but I would agree that this doesn't look good. I think it's a bad look for the county. I think it's very clear that this is a private company trying to win favor with the community and the county for future voting purposes. So I just think it's a bad idea for the county to get mixed in with this. I think it's going to upset a lot of folks, and for good reason. I just really think that there's a clear conflict here.
Thank you. Supervisor Curl?
I have concerns. One, public perception is everything, and we know that. How we got up here is it's all about public perception. This is a very unusual request. I also have concerns about liability. This wouldn't be our facility. What kind of insurance? What would happen if a child was hurt? What if there was an issue, in the parking lot? There's so many variables there that I have problems with, that I really would rather we open the door to the community and talk possibly, and I know the city has just as many issues with space as we do, but start a conversation with the city and see if there's a way we can work with the city on utilizing maybe some of their space that may be available at certain times. But also, I need to bring it back to the fact that every department in this county is struggling for space, and the tax collector, treasurer, and the assessor have been very patiently for years waiting to try and expand into the Hall of Records because they are on top of each other. And they are only growing every time I go in there. There's more staff, which is great because they're bringing in our tax base. It's all wonderful. But we have to start realizing our facilities problem is way bigger than just the library. It is a county-wide problem, and we need to start chomping at it a little bit at a time. So at this time, I just don't think I can support this. Even the conversations, I don't want to lead Nora down the wrong path of having conversations with them and then have her come back and have me not support it. I would really rather look at other options, and if administration can help with the city, that would be great, or even the schools.
Thank you all for your comments. I agree. I love the idea of possibly working with the city and the schools, of maybe identifying a location that might be a better fit. And I wholeheartedly agree about the public perception. I do see that, possibly lack of alternatives, and maybe this is an opportunity in light of some of the emails that we've gotten. I don't even know how realistic is this moving into the future. And so, and this item appears to me, we would be granting authority to the librarian to utilize this. To me, what I'm reading in this item is not just a conversation. This is, we are actually granting the authority to use the space. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with so many of the questions that have been raised today. So what is the will of the board? Does somebody want to make a motion, or do we want to?
I'll make a motion to deny the request.
For a second.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
I would second the denying of the request with direction from the board to look at to administration to look at other options that may be available between the city and the school districts.
I would accept that, yeah.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, 5-0. All right. Now onto our emergency item 2.5. It was the emergency MOUs with the food bank and I can't remember and the city of Hollister, I believe it was, the veterans.
Madam Chair, can we do the consent items while we bring them in? So we have Rachel here for that, and
Sure. Okay.
it's gonna be a bit, right? Yeah. What's going on? Oh, we can take
1.1 and 1.12. Okay, let me get there.
1.12.
There you go.
1202? No.
All right, so 1.1 was Supervisor Zanger.
Yeah, just quick. I think as CEO Espinoza, can you just give a little background on what this is and explain this a little?
Yeah, I'll invite up
whoever wants
Rachel.
to-
I'll invite up Rachel for this one.
So we are in the process of doing a healthcare revamp and a redoing of our healthcare system. And with that, we have to put in an implementation plan to the state and then meet standards each and every 6 months with the state. And so this what we're requesting is we work with a contractor called Cal Mesa, and Cal Mesa supports us with developing policies and procedures and helping us to develop our electronic health record and other standards that we're going to need in order to meet Cal AIM initiatives.
So it's required, those reports are required by the state, and so
Yeah.
this is just to help streamline the reporting process?
This is to streamline the reporting process, and this is an agency that will help us in developing policies and procedures to help streamline.
Got it. That's cool with me. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Is there
all
any
the
public
answers I
comment
needed.
for this item?
Oh, well.
No?
That, well, we already did,
We don't need to do it, even though we pulled it. We don't have to. Okay.
No,
All right. So would you like
Yeah.
to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve amendment 2 as stated.
I'll second that. So all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. All right. So item 1.12, Supervisor Cosmic, or do we want to?
So
I know. Hold on. I know we're waiting, I believe, for
she's-
Chris
yeah, she's
Magano,
on
right?
her way, but,
Do you want to break and go to closed session?
no, is she on the way by any chance? Okay, great. She's
There she
she's
is.
walking in. Thank you, Chris. I texted her earlier. Thanks for running over.
So we're looking at item 1.12, Chris, and also the, we'll do that one first, and then we'll go into the MOUs.
Okay.
Madam Chair, is it okay if I?
Yeah, please, Supervisor
and-
Cosmic.
Yeah, thank you. And the only reason I pulled this is just to make sure that I had a few questions related to the recent storm activity. You know, Friday was really bad, and I just had a few, just wanting a few updates and to make a few points. Would we be able to, if we could do that in the other item, I'd be fine with that. But I just wanted to just walk in the line a little bit with Brown Act versus the emergency. But otherwise, I'll just ask now if that's okay because it's under the emergency declaration.
Works for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just go ahead.
Okay, so in my district in particular, of course, the Mission RV park situation. I'm just wondering how the county is working with the city of San Juan to continue to address that situation, and just if you could provide some level of update on.
Sure. I was actually working with City Manager Reynolds this morning, and we are submitting a request today. It has to be submitted by tomorrow to FEMA for the non-congregate sheltering that the city of San Juan is doing by housing in motels some residents that were displaced. So we are working with them on that. And as soon as we can, we will try to work to get debris management in there.
And my understanding is perhaps most of those residents have hotel vouchers for now
Yes.
through the city
I believe they're caring for them through Friday.
through Friday.
Right.
Okay, and then after that, do we just hoping we can have communication with the city? Just
We
to
are
prevent
working,
that.
yeah, we've communicated that with the city manager.
Okay, great. And then of course that adjacent area there on the Alameda was all the mud that was there. I know the muck and everyone was upset they couldn't get through, and the
Yeah.
San Juan Canyon residents couldn't get out, and that's all resolved at this point though, as
It
far
is right now.
okay.
but
And
another
today there
storm-
wasn't any further.
No.
Because we were in the
today
meeting
it's
while it was
beautiful
going
out.
on.
We have not had the rain that was predicted.
Yeah, right, right.
I don't know where it is, so we have a call at 2:00 to find out what's happening.
Yeah, well, my kid got a
is
free
great.
day off of school, I guess.
Right,
then, huh?
yes.
And then Anzar Road, and maybe this is more Steve, Cole Road, there were a lot of issues over there. I just want to make sure that just if there's anything pertinent that,
I think those are good right now. We still have closures, and the link that we send on our daily report for our county mapping with road closures is the most current. Cienega Road, I know, is completely closed. They have to bring equipment in to get that tree removed, or several trees. And then Rocks Road was a hard closure on 101 and between 101 and 156.
okay. And then lastly, one thing first before my last thing, for road closures during storm events, I know our PIO is I'm wondering, just based off of this experience, if maybe we can, and maybe I missed it, but just have more of a continued sort of update on which roads are closed, and have somewhere like our website or
It
somewhere
is.
that we can.
So
point
there's
to.
a link that we sent out that it is directly to our website that is
Okay.
updated every time we open or close a road.
Okay,
Or
great.
that there's flooding or a watch or whatever we're.
Again, maybe I missed that link, but if that could be a really prominent part of the communication piece, because
Yeah.
that's really the big frustration for a lot of residents. Our commuters, obviously, they leave town and then they trying to get back in. I experienced it myself Friday. I was driving the back roads at Gilroy, driving through a lake, and
Yeah.
driving to roads I've never been on before and found in the Hollister and back. So everybody's going through this, and it
Yeah,
just would be
so
helpful.
Caltrans updates their page. We're updating ours. Unfortunately, Waze and Google haven't been picking it up as quickly. So they have directed some people through, not through, but to flooded areas. They're doing their best as well to stay up. Unfortunately, it's a widespread event.
Yeah. And then the last thing,
What we're
go ahead.
If I may, if you go to our website, it's prominent in labeled, it's a bold red,
Right
it
across the
says
top.
storm. It's right on top. You click on it and it has road closures. Just click on
Okay.
it. So just so the public knows. Top of our webpage, mark them
Awesome.
red, and then just go to the road closure section.
Fantastic. Road closure map. Does the, yeah, see, I see this map and I'm just wondering.
So mine's that I'm looking at right now, unless it's not pulling up the most recent, mine is showing 3:10, and the last time it was updated was 11:45 a.m.
And that could be because we haven't had anything new in the last,
Oh, Friday.
oh, Friday?
Yeah, Friday
Oh,
was
it
the last
updated
update.
this morning and yesterday.
How do you get it to update? Because I mean, I just clicked on it, and this is what pulls up for me.
It's coming up on my phone, when I hit it, because Ellie had a question back there. And it comes up on your phone.
Try it on your computer. What's wrong with my computer?
Well, so we'll look at that.
Okay.
We'll have, I'll have, Mindy. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been sending updates and they were showing, at least, when I looked at it this morning, Cienega showed closed. So if Cienega is showing closed, that was from last night after 5, Renee updated it. And then this morning we updated another Rocks Road this morning. So
I think it's just a
Probably
bar.
the GIS piece that when he does it, it's actually not showing the timestamp. So I'll talk to GIS on that.
Is Fairview closed? Do you know Fairview Road?
is not closed.
Because on this map right now, what I'm looking at is it shows it's closed,
It should not be closed.
and it shows Fallon Road is closed as well.
Friday's numbers.
So I mean, it doesn't look accurate to me.
And Madam Chair, if I may, that, and I think the map is great. We obviously want to update it, but maybe I'm getting old here, but I prefer a list. I look at the map and I, you know, it just, you got to zoom in and you got to try to figure out which road is which road. And you know, if somebody's, you know, you shouldn't be looking at, you know, your phone in the car, but if somebody's in the car and they're in a log jam and they're just, you know, which roads are open, it might, and this, I'm not being critical here, just trying to improve. It might be more beneficial to just have a list that you can look at, like, okay, these are the roads that are closed and there's my road and I'm not going to go, as opposed to having to zoom in on this thing. It's like a corner in the map. It's, you know, only covers a little portion of my computer screen. And
I will suggest that.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will have to see if we have somebody that can keep that current on a web page.
Okay, just a suggestion. And then the only last thing is in Aromas, with Highway 1 shut down, has been horrendous for the residents there. And, you know, I had got a lot of messages on this one, and I'm not normally the supervisor to say my phone is going crazy and all that, but I have, and it's understandable. And I had people, you know, this is a very small little area, as we all know, and people saying it took me an hour to take my kid to Aromas school when it normally takes 5 minutes. And is there anything, and I did communicate with the CHP, the response back was like, you know, we're in an emergency and the resources aren't there. Is there anything we can do to alleviate the re-diverting of traffic that would go through a small area like that causes that level of
Not that I'm capable of.
Yeah.
I know our public works department is spread thinner than any other public works, so I don't know how we could possibly do that. Also, Aromas is 10% of San Benito County. So we'd have to heavily rely on Santa Cruz and Monterey, and they're both literally underwater right now. So
yeah. And
unfortunately, they're dealing with.
As long as I can communicate that back, that like I'm, you know,
if we had the manpower and the signage, we would do our best.
I just think just even when we had the January storm and then San Juan was just like cars were just all the way through San Juan, and I made the mistake of going to run to get dinner on that Friday night, and it told me it was going to take me 45 minutes to get home to my home, which is 2 minutes away. But so anyway, I appreciate that information. That's all I have.
Absolutely.
I did have a question. Thank you for pulling this item. I wouldn't have normally, but my question is why the disparate treatment between what's happened in San Juan versus what happened at Lovers Lane? You stated that the Mission Park RV folks were able to get vouchers for the San Juan hotel, hotels.
The city manager chose to put them in a hotel rather than send them to the shelter here that's open.
So the city intervened.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
And I believe, yes, they did.
All right. Well, that explains the disparate treatment.
It is not being paid for out of any county funds at this point.
Okay. Okay. That clarifies a lot. Then I withdraw my objection there. Okay.
CAO Espinosa.
Just an update quickly on the GIS. So it is updated, the latest that he has, but he will go through and make an edit on the Fairview, just so you know. He didn't update the actual timestamp, so he'll start updating the timestamps. So, and he's on it, so.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chris. So would somebody like to make a
Well,
motion?
Madam Chair,
Oh,
if I can-
sorry, Supervisor Zinger.
Yeah, just jump in. This is
Sorry.
really convenient that this was pulled because I didn't know at the beginning of the meeting, but we heard back from staff that for everyone in Lovers Lane, everyone else that's been displaced, there was some questions about PG&E suspending service for folks that are displaced and not home, and reached out to the state, and the state informed us that they do not have the authority or means to deal with that through PG&E, but they recommend that individuals and families reach out to PG&E directly and explain and get that worked out with them. So just that's the message. The state, county doesn't have that leeway with PG&E. So, but if you reach out to them directly, I know they've been responsive to other folks about not charging them when they're displaced.
Thank you for making that point. So would someone like to make a motion then to approve item 1.12?
Move to approve, as recommended.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. Okay, so now let's move to the MOU, which is the emergency item added 2.5. And so there's two different MOUs we're looking
Correct.
at.
There's one MOU with the Veterans Memorial Hall that we used for sheltering during the January storms. And the second MOU is with the food bank. And in order to incorporate their expenses because we requested them, we need MOUs to attach with the invoices. So it's the post MOU for those events. We don't have those. We will come back with those. I didn't have time to get the budget adjustments.
So do you want the board just to acknowledge that there will be a budget adjustment from the reserve?
To have the funds directed from the emergency reserve fund that we have, and just direct the CAO to give the authority to make that budget adjustment. If you do that in the motion, then we're good. And really, the essence of this is just to get the MOU approved by the board so we can get it submitted to the to FEMA.
Right.
And subject to making any necessary changes in this after the city reviews it and the food bank reviews it in case there's any minor changes that they might want.
Were the amounts that were allocated, the 140 for the food bank and the 40 for the city, were those going to cover actual costs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have invoices that we need paid today once you approve it. And then we will submit it by the deadline of tomorrow to have that information included in our public assistance.
So we essentially get reimbursed then for these
Yes,
items.
at 100%.
Potentially could be
Okay.
a while,
Right,
years
but-
later, but we will.
right.
That's the plan.
Okay.
Now, and just one thing just to keep in mind, OES does their best to evaluate what is, refundable. There are some things that I know that we've looked at that may not be refundable, so we didn't put it on.
Right.
The things that look like they're going to be refundable, we have them on here. So that's that amount.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, press *9 on your phone or the raise your hand icon on your screen. In chambers, we have Elia Salinas.
Sorry.
Okay, so I just have one question to Ms. Mangano and the board. This is a temporary dating back. Can you have a future agenda item where, like in other counties, the food bank already cooperates? They already have cooperation. They already have an MOU. So with the OES, so that should this occur again, that it's already in place and it's not something temporary, they should be able to be, working together as one when emergency happens, instead of, when this happened, it was one here and one there, and then there was there was a little bit of chaos going on. So with in the future, please consider an agenda item so that there could be something permanent. Thank you.
No other comments.
Thank you. Chris, do you want to maybe answer? I mean, I think it seems to me we've been working very closely with the food bank.
We have been. And this is formality with FEMA. We are working closely with our nonprofits and forming a local nonprofit kind of group. So we hope to have many MOUs coming your way in months to come.
Awesome. Is there anybody on the board that has any? Supervisor Kosmicki?
A quick question, couple quick questions. The city of Hollister part of that, what are the chances that would not be reimbursed through the federal government?
Unlikely, but we can't guarantee every item.
Because I just am of the mindset that we're chipping in pretty significantly. I know they're putting resources toward this, but the county shouldn't be burdened with every expense. And so I would be concerned if it wasn't reimbursed, then we would be, out of our general fund, we would be using that toward that. And I just feel like I can go down the list. I could sit up here and rant about this issue, but I'm not going to. I just did, but I'm not going to. That they got to pick up the costs on some of this stuff. So I would not be comfortable with. I would be uncomfortable if it was rejected, and then we're picking up the costs for using the Veterans Memorial Building when we're doing all these other items that we're paying for with RVs and all these things out of our own funds. So just that's all.
If I may, I will just, I concur and agree. I think both cities and other jurisdictions we all should be working together. And I think in general, we have to some extent. I just wanted to share, there's some good news out of the Health and Human Services Department. The city went after a grant because we've been requesting, hey, you guys need to pony up for the operations at the homeless, at the shelter. And they went ahead and they wrote a grant, and they actually got it approved. So it's a big deal. That covers operations in that office. So they're more cognizant, I guess, of that, and aware that they need to be a partner, and they're going after funds to be a partner. So I just wanted to share that. I know we've met with the mayor, and I've been meeting regularly with the city manager, the assistant city manager. So we're working on that. So I just wanted to reassure the board.
Well, the city has to be commended for that effort, because that's been a long fight. It didn't need to be a fight, but it's been a long one. Well, thank you for that.
That was all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. And going back to Supervisor Kosmicki's kind of concern, you have this MOU with, say, the city for using the Veterans Building. Let's just say FEMA comes back, they don't fund it. Could we maybe have a conversation then with the city of, hey,
They've
can
been
we
very reasonable
this
to
out?
work with. I'm sure we could have a conversation.
Okay, great. Okay. Then would someone
I'd like to make a motion.
please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the MOU for the Office of Emergency Services utilizing the city Vets Memorial for $40,000 with friendly amendments approved with amendments that county council may need to do that are minor changes or corrections, and authorizing the CAO to sign the budget adjustment no more than $40,000 on that one. And do you want to do a separate one, or can I keep going? I'm gonna keep on going. Okay, so then I'd also like to approve the MOU for the January 2023 winter storm incident with the food bank in an amount of $140,000, not to exceed, with amendments that are minor, approved by county council, and authorizing the CAO to sign off on the budget adjustment. And in the future, if we do not have FEMA a reimbursement on the Vets Memorial, that we are able to bring it back and have a conversation with the board, with the city council at that time.
I'll second that. Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
So I believe we have one more emergency item. You want to, we hadn't discussed it earlier, so can somebody?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's you. There's an item that's being requested to be placed on the agenda. It's related to, let me pull up the email. Yeah, it's related to a bill we received notice yesterday relating a bill that's being put forth by Caballero in the amount of $1.5 billion to help hospitals. Potentially, I believe the CAO's office has worked on a letter to present in support of that bill. I believe the sheriff has already submitted a letter in support of that bill. So, but for right now, I'd ask that, and they're asking that the response be done by next week. And so if the board would be willing to add that as an urgency item, since it came to the posting, since the posting of the agenda cannot wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting, it'd be consider authorizing the chair, vice chair to probably in this instance,
The vice chair.
vice chair to approve the letter. But let's get it on the agenda first, if that's okay.
So do we have a motion to add this item to the agenda?
Yes, I would move to approve that urgency item.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, so now let's go to the item. Who's gonna
Do you
speak
wanna-
to it? Do you want me to step out?
Do you want to recuse yourself? It's
Sure,
up to you.
I'll leave.
It's, yeah. So,
Remember, you can speak as a member of the audience.
Okay, go right ahead.
all right. So do we have that? Okay, so I think all, is Manny on the phone? Is Manny on the? No. Okay, so I would basically reiterate what county council had just stated. And what we can do is actually, we could take a couple minute recess. We could print this out and then give it to you. Or what we could do is we could read it if you want to read it. That's fine. Or what I would suggest is just divert or authorize the vice chair to work with the administration on the letter, draft it, and then send it off. That would be probably the easiest thing, I think, in light of us just barely getting this.
Before we go to that, do we want to open it to public
Yes,
comment?
that's just the opening remarks, and we'll
Can
pass
we
it back
have,
to you.
can we have the letter read first? Because I don't have any knowledge of it. I just checked my email and it's not there, and I'm the one that added it as an urgency item, so I would like to know what I
I would
added.
agree with that, to have
Read
county
it,
council just
please.
read it, and then we'll open it up to public comment.
So this is just a draft that's been drafted this morning. It's going to start either as I or we respectfully request your support to save financially distressed California hospitals, to protect access to care and stabilize the healthcare delivery system for California's most vulnerable. This emergency lifeline, representing just 1% of all Medi-Cal funding, is essential to keep hospital doors open and services available in the short term to communities in San Benito County. A one-time relief package in 2023 will assist with the immediate challenges facing our hospital in Hollister, followed by structural rate increases to prevent future crises that will help protect access for extremely vulnerable Californians with the greatest health needs. For low-income Californians who rely on Medi-Cal for coverage, 2/3 of whom are people of color, the situation is most dire. Communities with high Medi-Cal enrollment already suffer from a lack of healthcare providers, often relying on hospitals as their sole or primary care solution, with reduced services and outright closures looming. California's most vulnerable, especially people living in rural or underserved areas, will see their access to care evaporate if immediate fiscal state relief is not delivered. Without this assistance, communities and counties throughout the state are on track to lose vital community pillars of healthcare services and employment. All of San Benito County, Madera, Visalia, Placerville, Porterville, Bakersfield, Montebello, Humboldt County, and all Imperial County and pockets of Los Angeles are communities that could potentially have closures of hospitals and clinics that serve the more, the most vulnerable population of California. The one-time 1.5 billion relief package is part of the larger solution that seeks to correct structural underfunding in the Medi-Cal system that must be resolved to create long-term stability for our healthcare system. The crisis is not hypothetical, it's happening now. The hospital closure in Hollister will, without question, be replicated in other parts of California without relief. Once a hospital closes, it's incredibly difficult to reopen, let alone reopen with the same level of services that Californians need, expect, and deserve. It's for these reasons we are requesting this one-time relief package to support hospital care for Medi-Cal patients. It is as a draft, but thank you.
Okay.
For the CFO to draft it.
Sorry about that. That's the gist of the letter. And we'll pass it back to the vice chair. You can open it up for public
Okay,
comment.
so I'm going to open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. No comment.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Any comments?
Only thing, Madam Chair, does it still make sense to direct the vice chair to finalize the letter?
Well, yeah. So I think there's going to be some wording and some slight edits, but nothing material. That's what I would suggest the vice chair and the administration to work on. But we would want support from the entire board. Ultimately, that's why it's on here. The chair or the vice chair could have done it, or I could have mailed this, but and we could send this off to the entire board as well, so you can review it.
It's pretty final. It's just like maybe a couple.
Yeah, a couple of words, just a couple of. I noticed. Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the Senate bill number that we're referring to that she's introducing? Let's see. Because I just Googled it and I didn't find anything coming up yet.
While we're waiting, do you have any comments?
It's called budget. I don't know. On her email, it says you're doing a letter of support. It's budget proposal 2023-24.
And County Council, after having a conversation with Ana Caballero's office, this was what she was proposing, was to bring this urgency item into the budget negotiation period. So I don't think it is a
Not yet,
bill.
it isn't
at
a
this
bill
time.
yet,
It's just part
okay.
of the budget request.
And I know that she's had not only Hazel Hawkins in her district, but also there's been others in the valley that she has been dealing with. And so I'd like to move forward with this. So do you need a formal motion, or what do you need?
Yeah, we would like one, just because I think it's important you have all your names on it if you support it.
Okay. So then I'd like to make a motion per staff recommendation to go ahead with urgency item 2.6 to authorize the vice chair to sign the letter regarding Caballero's budget proposal toward hospital assistance in whatever manner that's going to materialize in.
With minor corrections from the CAO's office.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll get her.
Okay.
The last item that was going to be added to the agenda is closed session conference with labor negotiators, agency designated representatives, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Henny Ring, Barbara Thompson, employee organizations, DSA, IA, SCIU, and unrepresented. Authority Government Code Section 54957.6.
Can I just ask a question? If this was ongoing negotiations, why wasn't on the item and why is it coming up as an urgency item for us? I
Yeah, it relates to the employees' compensation for storm-related events, I believe. And it just came to our attention this morning.
okay.
So do we have any public comment on this item?
In chambers, please provide speaker card. On Zoom, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. Elias Salinas.
Thank you, Supervisor Gonzalez, because that's my question as well, is why is it not, the public wasn't noticed that this was going to be on here? And what is the emergency that they can't wait until the next meeting? The only thing that I can think of is that it's employees and they're wondering whether they're going to get paid overtime or not. And I think that's already protected in their contracts. So it just seems really unusual that it has to be behind closed doors, that the public can't know that it's either overtime or there is, you're talking about the Deputy Sheriff's Association, you're talking about Public Works. I can't remember what other agencies you said are represented by certain union members. It just seems unusual. I would hope you all agree with that. And I can't see what's an emergency. If they're going to get paid overtime, it's going to come at the end of the month. Do they not qualify for overtime? Because one of the things that was, that I've been coming up here saying since the storms came in is that when you're hired as an employee, part of your contract is that you're going to be on the emergency response team. You're going to be pulled from your jobs. And so they should already understand that. So I keep repeating myself. It's just unusual. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may. Why don't we just do this in open session? It's not, I don't think it's I think there could be, I don't think there's anything really, I know that the public comment has some concerns. It's not about overtime. It's about public safety. It's about employees. And last Friday was a great example. I think some board members were either landlocked, there was some really significant rain, and actually very dangerous to be on the road. So if you don't mind, we just do this in open session, just get consensus from the board.
I'm okay with that. Is everybody else okay
I
with?
would prefer it to be
Okay.
an open
Okay.
session.
So yes, let's
So-
keep it in open session.
So with that, I'll keep moving forward. So they're really important, again, like I said, for employees and the safety, and there were employees that could not make it in. I think even tried, but had a turnaround, and it was a pretty serious event. With that, they had to go home, and some individuals did not have the ability to work from home. And so we want to make sure that they remain whole. And ultimately, in an emergency event, typically we have codes in the system that upstairs the auditing office goes off of to actually cue what the salary, what's going to be paid, and from what area is it going to be paid from. And so we want to keep the employees whole. We think it's important and really important for our employees to keep those individuals whole, not having to go and use their own vacation or sick time or other time, because this event, they weren't going on a vacation, they weren't doing it. It is just an unfortunate circumstance. And so we're asking the board to keep them whole and to have a code entered into the system that relates that. Henny Rings here, HR manager, and she could probably elaborate a little further if you like.
Madam Chair, members of the public as well. What this is regarding is, like Ray said, is keeping them whole, that they're not being penalized using their own leave banks because they were unable to get to work because of road closures, and they didn't have the ability to have a laptop to continue working from home. So what we're looking at is how would we keep them whole with their paycheck so they're not, taking a penalty on that for their next payroll. What we're going to ask is, we have other codes that we use for when they're, for FEMA, if they're working from
COVID.
home regarding the storm, that they're working with that, but because they weren't working at all, we're gonna probably ask payroll if we have special codes so we could direct the department heads and the people who process their payroll that they're coded correctly so that we know that they are separate from rest of the regular payroll.
And keeping track of time is important. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I believe that this is within the CIO's authority to grant. There's been similar instances in the past. I've been present when there was a bomb scare one time at my old county and people had to evacuate the building. They still were paid, et cetera. So, it's within the authority, but it was raised the question about whether we needed to have the board bless it. So this is like more an abundance of like disclosure and having you acknowledge that and bless it, but you don't need to take action. If you would, I think it'd be better just to say, yes, it's approved. But it's like, this is just to make sure that it's clear that it's an authorized expenditure. But I would believe that, emergencies do happen and people have to make decisions on the spot, and safety of the employees comes paramount.
Madam Chair, while I'm not against this at all, didn't we make sure that employees have computers during COVID when COVID happened? Didn't the county, purchase computers so that in case there was the problem where we would be able to remotely work from home? Isn't that still?
That is true, but not for all employees. Not all employees have the ability to just work from a laptop from home. So there's some offices you have to come in and physically work, be present, addressing customers, so on and so forth. So again, those are really specific for those individuals. There's a lot of employees that had the ability that fell under that. On Friday they had
Turn
the
on their
ability to
computer
work
when
from
they're
home
at work,
and,
right.
and do it, but there are a few that were not able to, and that's what we're trying to address.
Okay. And then the other question was for what's the duration of the coverage that we're looking at? Is this just for Friday where they weren't able to come in? Are we talking the weekend? Are we talking into Monday? Because I know some areas were still affected, as of yesterday. So what's the duration that we're looking at, and total employees that are being impacted, and then potential cost?
Cost I would know because it would be per whoever's out, so we'd have to calculate that. Not that we can't get it, but we could give an estimate later. It would be for Friday for sure. I did send out direction to department heads for today because of the forecast that at their discretion, if they needed to have employees stay home because they have to travel pretty far and the road would be closed. So I don't know if any department heads enacted that or not. We did let them have that discretion to keep, again, we want to keep our workforce safe.
Right.
So it could be today. I said today, possibly tomorrow, but as we can tell right now, the sun is out, so it looks like.
Well, I know this week we're supposed to have another atmospheric river coming in. And so, yeah, my concern is just that how long is the duration that we're looking at?
I think maybe 3 days, around there, depending on what the next storm looks like.
As I said, I'm not against it at all. It's just, I just want to make sure we look at the parameters.
And maybe the action item that the board takes is saying the board's not taking action. This is within the CA's authority. Leave it at that, and that way any future actions are covered as well.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Do we have any public comment on this item since we've presented on it now?
There was already,
Even though we,
but
okay.
you can open it again.
Is there any public comment?
In chambers, please provide a speaker card. On Zoom, please press star 9 or the raise your hand icon. No further comment.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other comments or questions from the board on this item?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Elliot, you finally got your way. I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'd second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
For future
as well.
CAO
Yes.
authorization.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. So can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's not even lunchtime. There's
All in
somebody that's
favor?
home. Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
No. The 28th.
Nope.
No, we didn't order it.
Yeah,